$700 a month. Stay out of their marriage. You think I can be bought?
Mom, I didn't know.
My parents hid all this from us?
They controlled our house from day one.
Now you finally know the truth.
You planned this?
No, you created this. You weren't supposed to find out.
My daughter-in-law's mother slid an envelope across the restaurant table and smiled as if she were doing Elara Morgan a favor. $700 a month, Veronica said softly. Enough for a woman like you to stay comfortable and stop depending on Marcus. Elara looked at her son, waiting for him to say something, anything. He stared at his plate. Simone sat frozen beside him. Around them, crystal glasses sparkled beneath soft lights while strangers laughed and celebrated. No one else knew what was happening at that table. No one else knew that Simone's family believed Elara was poor, naive, and easy to push aside. They had no idea the woman they were trying to buy off had spent years protecting a secret powerful enough to destroy every lie sitting between them. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 days earlier, Elara still hoped her son had not become ashamed of her. At 67 years old, Elara Morgan lived alone in a quiet apartment complex just outside Atlanta. The building was old but well-maintained. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh paint and lemon cleaner. The neighbors knew one another by name. Some people might have considered it modest. Elara considered it peaceful. She had lived there for nearly 12 years. Every morning she woke before sunrise, made coffee, reviewed her schedule, and left for work before most of the building was awake. Every evening she returned home, watered the plants on her balcony, prepared dinner, and read for an hour before bed. It was a simple life, or at least that was what people assumed. That Tuesday afternoon, Elara was reviewing reports at her dining table when her phone rang. The screen showed Marcus. She smiled immediately. No matter how old he became, seeing his name still warmed her heart. "Hello, sweetheart, Mom." Something felt off immediately. His voice sounded tight, nervous, almost rehearsed. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Yeah, everything's fine." The pause that followed suggested otherwise. Elara leaned back in her chair. "What is it?" "Well, Simone's parents are in town. I know. They arrived yesterday." They want to meet you." Elara was silent. Marcus and Simone had been married for almost 3 years. Veronica and Franklin Vale had never shown any interest in meeting her before. "That's sudden," she said. "Yeah, they just thought it was time." Another pause. Longer this time. Elara stared out her window at the parking lot below. "What aren't you telling me, Marcus?" He sighed. She heard him moving around, probably pacing. Then he finally spoke. "Mom, I need you to do me a favor." There it was, the real reason for the call. "What kind of favor?" "When we go to dinner Saturday, just be yourself." Elara almost laughed. "That's usually my plan." "No, he stopped, then started again. Don't make things complicated." Her smile disappeared. "What exactly does that mean?" Another silence. "Marcus, I told them you're simple." The word landed harder than he realized. Simple. As if an entire human life could fit inside one small label. Elara remained quiet. "I told them you live alone," he continued. "That you work in an office, that you're comfortable. That you don't really care about fancy things. That part is true." "Yeah, but what?" Marcus exhaled heavily. "They come from a different background." Elara closed her eyes. She had heard that sentence before, many times. Usually it meant someone was preparing an excuse for bad behavior. What kind of background? Wealthy, successful. They're used to a certain lifestyle. And I just don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable. There it was, the real truth hiding beneath all the careful wording. Marcus wasn't worried about Veronica and Franklin. He was worried about being embarrassed by his mother, not because she had done something wrong, because she might not look impressive enough. The realization hurt, not because of Veronica, not because of Franklin, because it came from her son. For a moment, she considered telling him everything, telling him what she actually did, what she earned, the responsibilities she carried every day, the people who answered to her, the decisions she made. But she stopped herself. Instead, she asked a simple question. "What exactly did you tell them about me?" Marcus hesitated. "Just that you're normal, simple, comfortable, not much." The pieces were beginning to fit together. "Do they think I'm poor?" she asked calmly. Marcus didn't answer immediately, and that was answers enough. "Oh, Mom, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "They just have certain expectations." Elara looked down at the stack of reports on her table. Millions of dollars in regional operational forecasts sat beneath her hand. People's jobs depended on decisions she would make before the end of the month. Yet somewhere across the city, strangers had already decided she was insignificant, and worse, her son had helped them do it. "Saturday," Marcus said carefully. 7 o'clock. I'll be there." Great. His relief was immediate, too immediate, as if he had been afraid she might refuse. They ended the call a few moments later. The apartment fell silent. Elara sat motionless. Then she stood and walked toward the bookshelf near the living room window. A framed photograph sat there, not of Marcus, not of family, just a picture taken years ago during a company conference. Most visitors never noticed it. Even if they did, they wouldn't recognize the significance. Elara picked it up. For a moment she stared at it, then she set it back down. Slowly, thoughtfully. Something about that conversation bothered her. Not just Marcus's embarrassment, the timing, the sudden dinner, the strangest nervousness, the careful wording. There was more beneath the surface, she could feel it. And her instincts had rarely been wrong. Over the years, she had learned something important. People revealed their true character when they believed they had power over someone. Especially financial power. Especially social power. Maybe Veronica and Franklin would surprise her. Maybe Marcus was overreacting. Maybe this would simply be an awkward dinner. She hoped so. She truly did. But hope and experience were rarely the same thing. That evening, Elara opened a locked drawer in her bedroom. Inside were neatly organized folders, estate documents, financial records, insurance information, legal correspondence, everything carefully maintained, not because she was paranoid, because she believed adults should know exactly what they owned and exactly who had access to it. She reviewed several documents. Nothing appeared unusual. Still, she updated a few notes and secured everything again. Before locking the drawer, her eyes landed on a sealed envelope, a plain white envelope, no markings. No labels. She stared at it for several seconds, then she closed the drawer without opening it. Saturday arrived. Elara spent the morning running errands. She bought groceries, picked up dry cleaning, visited the local farmer's market. The entire time she thought about the dinner. By late afternoon, she had made her decision. She would not impress anyone. She would not explain herself. She would simply observe. If Veronica and Franklin believed she was poor, then she would allow them to keep believing it, not to humiliate them. Not to trick them, but to understand them. To see how they treated someone they thought had nothing. At 6 o'clock, she stood in front of her bedroom mirror. Instead of choosing one of her better outfits, she selected a plain gray dress she rarely wore. Comfortable shoes, no jewelry except a small watch, no designer handbag, just an old canvas tote. The reflection looking back at her appeared ordinary, forgettable even. Perfect. Before leaving, she checked her purse, wallet, phone, identification, keys, and finally the sealed envelope. She placed it carefully inside, then closed the bag. A few minutes later, a taxi dropped her in front of one of the most expensive restaurants in Atlanta. The building glowed beneath elegant lighting. Luxury cars lined the curb. Valets moved quickly between arriving guests. Elara paid the driver and stepped onto the sidewalk. For a moment she simply stood there, looking at the entrance, feeling something she hadn't expected. Sadness, not fear, not anxiety, sadness. Because part of her still hoped she was wrong. Still hoped Marcus had not become embarrassed by the woman who raised him. Still hoped Simone's family would be kind. Still hoped this dinner would not become a test. She adjusted the strap on her tote bag and walked toward the entrance. The hostess opened the door. Warm light spilled across polished floors. Soft music drifted through the air. Elara stepped inside and immediately saw them. Marcus, Simone, Franklin, and Veronica. They were already seated near the windows. Marcus spotted her first. His face changed instantly, not with happiness, not with relief, with alarm, as if she had arrived dressed exactly the way he feared she would. Simone looked down. Franklin frowned, and Veronica looked Elara up and down slowly, from her worn shoes, to her plain gray dress, to the faded canvas tote hanging from her shoulder. Then Veronica's lips tightened into a polite smile, not welcoming, not friendly. The smile of someone who had already made a decision. The smile of someone looking at a problem that needed to be managed. Marcus stood halfway out of his chair before he seemed to remember himself. His hand lifted slightly, then dropped back to his side. For one fragile second, Elara thought he might cross the room and greet her with the warmth he used to have when no one important was watching. Instead, he smoothed the front of his jacket and gave her a smile that looked borrowed from someone else. "Mom," he said too softly. Elara walked toward the table with measured steps. The restaurant felt even quieter as she approached. though she knew that was only her own heartbeat filling her ears. The room was full of conversations, silverware, laughter, and soft music, but at that table everything had tightened. Simone sat beside Marcus in a cream-colored dress, beautiful and tense, her hands folded too neatly in her lap. Franklin Vale looked at Elara the way a banker might look at a bad investment. Veronica kept smiling. "Elara," Simone said, standing halfway. She kissed the air near Elara's cheek without quite touching her. "I'm glad you could come." The sentence sounded correct. The feeling behind it did not. "Thank you for inviting me," Elara said. Marcus finally moved closer and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. It was not a hug. It was a gesture meant to look like affection from a distance. Elara felt the difference immediately. She did not pull away. She simply let him perform whatever role he believed the evening required. "Mom, this is Veronica and Franklin Vale," Marcus said. "Simone's parents." Veronica extended her hand across the table. Her fingers were cool, thin, and covered in rings that caught the light. "A pleasure," she said. Elara accepted the handshake. It lasted less than a second. Franklin rose just enough to be polite. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carefully dressed in a charcoal suit. The watch on his wrist looked heavy enough to bruise. "Mrs. Morgan," he said, "we've heard a great deal about you." Elara noticed the word great. Not much, not wonderful, great. A word that could mean anything when spoken by a man who had already decided she meant very little. "I hope some of it was true," she replied. Franklin gave a polite chuckle, but his eyes did not warm. "I'm sure Marcus did his best." There it was again. The careful little blade. Marcus looked down and adjusted his napkin. A waiter appeared just as Elara reached for the empty chair beside Marcus. Before she could sit, Veronica gestured lightly to the far end of the table. "We saved that seat for you, dear. It's a little quieter there. I thought you might be more comfortable." The chair she indicated was not beside Marcus. It was not beside Simone. It was at the end, slightly removed from the center of the group, close to the aisle where servers moved past with trays. Elara understood immediately. They had not saved the seat for her comfort. They had placed her where she would not interrupt the picture. Marcus's eyes flicked toward the chair, then toward Elara. He looked embarrassed, but not enough to object. "That's fine," Elara said. She sat without waiting for anyone to help her. The chair was heavy, and one leg caught briefly against the carpet. Marcus noticed. His jaw tightened. Still, he did not move. Elara placed her canvas tote carefully at her feet. Inside it were her wallet, her phone, her identification, and the sealed envelope. She felt its presence like a quiet weight. Not a weapon, not yet. More like a reminder that she had not walked into this room empty-handed, no matter what they thought. The waiter handed her a menu bound in dark leather. The pages were thick, the words arranged in elegant columns. Some dishes were listed in French. Several had no prices beside them. Elara had eaten in restaurants like this before, usually at corporate dinners where people measured one another by wine choices and job titles. She knew exactly how this world worked. Tonight, however, she lowered her gaze and let her fingers hesitate over the page. Veronica watched her closely. "Do you need help with the menu?" Veronica asked. The question might have sounded kind if not for the way she said menu, as if it were a test Elara had already failed. Elara looked up. "Maybe a little. There are many choices," Veronica smiled. "Of course, these places can be overwhelming if you're not used to them." Franklin leaned back, amused. "The portions are small, but the bill isn't." Simone gave a faint laugh that died almost immediately. Marcus took a sip of water. Elara folded her hands on top of the menu. "I'm sure I'll manage." No, Veronica said quickly. "Let me help. You don't want to order something too rich or too unfamiliar. Sometimes simple is best." Simple, again. The word had followed Elara from Marcus's phone call all the way into this restaurant. It was almost impressive how easily they used it, dressing it up as concern while using it as a box. Veronica turned to the waiter. For Mrs. Morgan, perhaps the chicken, nothing too heavy, and the house salad dressing on the side. Elara had not ordered. No one asked if that was what she wanted. The waiter hesitated only briefly. "Of course, Mom." Elara looked at Marcus. His eyes were on his glass. That was the first humiliation of the night. Not loud, not dramatic, but clear enough. Veronica had taken away even the small choice of what Elara would eat, and Marcus had allowed it because correcting her would disturb the peace. Elara picked up her water glass with steady fingers. She let the coolness of it ground her. Years of boardrooms had taught her not to react too quickly. People who underestimated you often kept talking if you gave them silence. "So," Franklin said, settling back into conversation, "Marcus tells us you live outside the city." "Yes." "In an apartment?" "That's right." Veronica tilted her head. "That must be convenient. Less maintenance. At a certain stage in life, comfort matters more than space." Elara heard the phrase at a certain stage in life and placed it carefully beside the others. Simple, comfortable, not much, less maintenance. They were building their version of her, one polite insult at a time. "It suits me," Elara said. "Good," Veronica replied. "A person should know what suits them." Simone's eyes moved quickly toward her mother, then away. Elara saw discomfort there, but discomfort was not courage. She knew that better than anyone. She had spent years watching adults mistake silence for kindness. Marcus tried to shift the subject. "The traffic getting here was awful." Franklin nodded. "Atlanta traffic is always awful. That's why we hired a driver for the week. When you get used to certain conveniences, it's hard to go back." Veronica laughed softly. "Franklin says that as if he didn't once insist on renting a car in Lisbon and nearly drive us into a tram." Simone smiled more naturally at that, and for a moment the family looked normal, warm even. Elara watched them and felt an unexpected ache. She did not want to hate these people. She had not come looking for enemies. She had come hoping to be wrong. Then Veronica turned back to her. "And you drove yourself, Elara?" "I took a taxi." "Oh." Veronica's eyebrows lifted slightly. "How practical." Franklin looked at Marcus. "You didn't pick your mother up?" Marcus flushed. "I offered." He had not. Elara looked at him, waiting. Marcus did not look back. A small silence fell. It lasted only a second, but Elara felt something inside her settle into place. He had lied easily. Not a large lie, not a cruel lie, but a lie meant to make himself look better in front of people whose approval he wanted too much. Elara reached into her tote, pretending to adjust her wallet. Instead, her fingers found her phone. She pressed the side button, checked that it was on silent, and opened a blank note beneath the table. She typed only 4 words. Marcus lied about ride. Then she locked the screen and placed the phone back inside her bag. It was not evidence for a courtroom. It was evidence for herself. A record. A small act of refusing to let the evening blur later into excuses and apologies. She had learned long ago that emotional abuse often survived because everyone remembered it differently afterward. The appetizers arrived. Tiny plates, careful colors, a sauce drawn across porcelain like a signature. Veronica explained each dish with the confidence of someone giving a tour. "This one is excellent," she said. Though maybe a little adventurous, she placed the mildest plate closer to Elara without asking. Elara accepted it. Marcus watched her from the corner of his eye. She could see worry in his face now, but not concern for her. Concern that she might say something. Concern that his 2 worlds might collide. Veronica lifted her glass. "To family," she said. Everyone raised their glasses. Elara did too. The word family sat strangely in her mouth. For most of her life, she had believed family meant protection, not perfection, not constant agreement, but at least protection. Sitting at the far end of that expensive table, watching her son calculate every expression before he made it, she wondered when protection had become performance. The conversation moved around her rather than toward her. Franklin discussed private clubs. Veronica mentioned the hotel where they were staying, making sure to include the nightly rate. Simone spoke briefly about an upcoming charity gala her company was sponsoring. Marcus talked about a new project at work, but every time he began to sound proud, Franklin redirected the conversation toward money, connections, or long-term status. Elara listened. She learned more by listening than any of them realized. Franklin asked Marcus whether he had considered moving into a stronger financial circle. Veronica added that marriage created opportunities when both families understood the bigger picture. Simone stiffened at that. Marcus nodded too quickly. Then Veronica looked toward Elara again. "Forgive me if this is personal," she said, which usually meant she intended to be personal, "but do you still work full-time?" "Yes, at your age?" Marcus's fork paused in midair. Elara smiled gently. "I like staying useful." "How admirable," Veronica said, "though I do hope you're not overworking yourself out of necessity." There was pity in her voice now, polished, practiced pity. The kind people used when they wanted to feel generous without offering respect. "I manage," Elara said. Franklin's mouth curved. "That's the spirit." The waiter returned to refill water glasses. While he leaned near Veronica, Elara noticed a cream-colored envelope resting beside Veronica's purse. It had not been there when Elara arrived. Veronica's hand moved over it quickly, almost casually, but not before Elara saw the neat handwriting across the front. For Elara, a chill moved slowly through her, not because of the envelope itself. Because Marcus saw it too, and he looked away. Elara lowered her eyes to her plate and kept her face calm. The night had barely begun, and already there was a seat chosen for her, a meal chosen for her, a lie spoken over her, and an envelope waiting with her name on it. Then Veronica leaned forward, her smile softening into something sharper. "Elara," she said, I hope you don't mind me asking, but how much money do you actually survive on each month? Elara kept her hand around the water glass and let Veronica's question settle over the table. How much money do you actually survive on each month? The words were soft enough that no other table would notice. That was part of Veronica's skill. She knew how to make cruelty sound like concern. She knew how to ask a question that could be defended later as harmless. Marcus looked up at last. His eyes moved from Veronica to Elara and then back down again, as if he hoped the moment would pass if he did not touch it. Simone pressed her lips together. "Mom," she said quietly. Veronica did not look at her daughter. "What?" "It's a practical question. Families should understand one another's circumstances." Franklin lifted his wine glass. "Especially when those circumstances may eventually affect everyone." That was more direct. Elara heard it clearly. They were not only judging her, they were assessing risk. Somehow, in their minds, she had already become a financial problem that might one day spill into Marcus and Simone's marriage. Elara folded the napkin in her lap once, then unfolded it. Her fingers stayed calm. Inside, something had tightened painfully. "I have enough for my needs," she said. Veronica smiled as though she had expected that answer. "That is such a dignified thing to say." Dignified, another polished word with pity underneath. "I mean it," Elara said. "Oh, I'm sure you do." Veronica leaned back. "But enough can mean very different things to different people. For example, Franklin and I have always believed security matters. Real security, not just getting by." Franklin nodded. "Getting by is dangerous. People think they're independent until an emergency happens. Medical bills, rent increases, a job change. Suddenly their adult children are carrying the burden." The word burden had not fully appeared yet, but Elara felt it forming. Marcus shifted in his chair. "Franklin, Mom's fine." It should have comforted her. It did not. His voice lacked conviction. He sounded like a man trying to close a topic, not defend a person. Veronica turned to Marcus with a patient smile. "No one is saying she isn't fine, dear. We're simply speaking honestly. Families who avoid financial reality often pay for it later." Elara noticed how easily Veronica included herself in Marcus's family, as if the Vales now had authority over what should be discussed, what should be hidden, and who counted as a future obligation. The waiter returned with the main courses. He placed the chicken in front of Elara. It was arranged beautifully, a small portion on a wide white plate, with a pale sauce and 3 careful vegetables. Veronica's order for her. Elara looked at it, then lifted her eyes toward the waiter. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Could I also have a side of the roasted potatoes?" The waiter blinked. "Of course, Mom." Veronica's smile stiffened. "Those are quite rich. I like potatoes," Elara said. It was a small thing, almost nothing. But it was the first choice she had claimed at that table, and she felt Veronica notice it. Marcus looked almost relieved, then guilty for being relieved. Simone lowered her gaze, but this time Elara saw the faintest hint of a smile before it vanished. Franklin cut into his steak. "So, Elara, Marcus mentioned you work in an office." "Yes." "What kind of office? Operations?" Veronica tilted her head. "Administrative operations?" Elara let the assumption stand. "I do a little of many things. Filing, scheduling, that kind of work?" Veronica asked. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Of course he did not know enough to correct her. Elara had made sure of that for years. She had wanted Marcus to build a life without measuring himself against her income. She had wanted him to value effort, not inheritance. But now, sitting there, she wondered whether her silence had left too much room for other people to define her. "Some paperwork," Elara said. Veronica nodded with satisfaction. "That's honest work." "There's no shame in honest work." "There never was," Elara replied. Franklin looked at her a little more closely, perhaps hearing something in her tone. Veronica did not. She had already placed Elara into the category she wanted. "We've always believed in work, too," Veronica said. "Franklin built everything we have through discipline. Nothing was handed to us." Franklin accepted the praise like a man accustomed to it. "Real discipline is rare now." "Very rare," Veronica agreed. "We taught Simone early. Good schools, good mentors, travel, languages, exposure to culture. A person needs more than survival. They need refinement." Simone's face tightened at that, but she said nothing. Elara took one careful bite of the chicken. It was tender, expensive, and almost tasteless. She chewed slowly, using the silence to watch them. Veronica continued. "Last year we spent 3 weeks in Europe, Paris, Milan, Vienna. Franklin had business meetings, of course, but we made time for culture. Museums, private tastings, a small charity dinner in Zurich. Very nice," Elara said. "It was. Travel changes your standards. Once you've seen how people live in certain circles, it becomes hard to accept less." Franklin glanced around the restaurant. Even here, the service is decent, but not exceptional. Elara wondered if he heard himself. He sat in a restaurant where one dinner could cover a utility bill for many working families and still found a way to feel deprived. Veronica turned back to her. Do you travel much, Elara? Not recently. Because of work?
In part.
And finances? There it was again, the small hook hidden inside every question. Elara set down her fork. I choose carefully. Veronica smiled. That's wise. At a certain income level, one must be careful. Marcus's face flushed. Mom doesn't need to explain her finances. Elara looked at him. For a second, she felt something soften. Then Veronica reached across and touched Marcus's hand. You're protective, she said. That's sweet. But protectiveness can become stress. Simone and I were talking about that earlier. Elara's chest tightened. Earlier. So they had discussed her before she arrived. Not casually, not kindly. Enough for Veronica to bring it into this dinner as if it were already a family concern. Simone looked sharply at her mother. We didn't talk about it like that. Veronica's eyes moved to Simone. The change was quick but clear, a warning. Simone looked down again. Elara saw the whole exchange. She also saw Marcus see it and pretend he had not. Her phone rested inside her tote, silent and close. She could have opened the note again. She could have typed every phrase, but this moment needed more than a note. Under the table, with slow, careful movement, she unlocked her phone and turned on the voice memo app. She did not place it on the table. She did not aim it at anyone. She simply let it sit inside her open purse, recording the conversation around her. Georgia law had taught her something useful during years of executive training. As long as one party to a conversation consented, a recording could be lawful in many situations. She was present. She consented. Still, she did not plan to use it recklessly. She wanted the truth preserved, if only for herself. Franklin wiped his mouth with his napkin. Marcus is at a stage where he must think long-term. Marriage changes responsibilities. I agree, Elara said. He has a good future, Franklin continued, but futures can be strained by old obligations. Marcus stiffened. What does that mean? Franklin gave a mild shrug. Nothing offensive. Just reality. We've seen it often. Adult children trying to build their lives while supporting parents who did not prepare properly. Elara felt the sentence enter her slowly. Parents who did not prepare properly, if only he knew. But the hurt came before the irony, because he had not asked what she had prepared. He had not asked what she owned. He had not asked what she had sacrificed or protected. He had looked at her dress, her bag, her taxi, and decided the story was complete. Veronica softened her voice. Elara, please don't misunderstand. We admire women who manage alone. Truly, it must take courage, does it? Elara asked. Veronica paused. Of course. Then why does it sound like failure when you say it? The tables went still. Marcus looked at her fully then, alarmed. Simone's eyes widened. Franklin's expression cooled. Veronica's smile remained, but the warmth drained out of it. I'm sorry, Veronica said. Elara picked up her fork again, not because she wanted another bite, but because she refused to let them see her hands empty. You called it courage. Franklin called it poor preparation. I'm just trying to understand which one you believe. A faint flush rose along Veronica's neck. I think you're being sensitive. There it was, the oldest escape route. Elara gave a small nod, maybe. Marcus leaned toward her. Mom, please, that single word hurt more than Veronica's entire performance. Please, not please, continue. Not please tell the truth. Please don't embarrass me. Please don't make this difficult. Please stay in the role I gave you. Elara looked at her son for a long second, then lowered her gaze to her plate. The conversation resumed, but the tone had changed. Veronica became brighter, more polished, more determined to reclaim control. She talked about the boutique hotel where she and Franklin were staying, mentioning the private terrace and the concierge by name. Franklin spoke about their investment properties overseas. Simone tried once to mention a new design project at work, but Veronica interrupted to praise the firm's wealthy clients instead. Elara listened, and the voice memo continued recording from her tote. Then Franklin asked Marcus about the house. Have you looked into refinancing yet? He said. Marcus froze. It was small, but Elara caught it. Simone's fork stopped against her plate. Veronica gave Franklin a sharp glance, quickly covered by a sip of wine. Elara kept her face still. Marcus cleared his throat. Not yet. You should, Franklin said. Rates aren't ideal, but depending on how things are structured, it may still make sense. How what is structured? Elara asked. Franklin looked at her as if he had forgotten she was there. Just financial details. About Marcus and Simone's house, Veronica smiled too quickly. Nothing for you to worry about, dear. Dear. Elara felt the sealed envelope in her purse, the recording phone beside it, and the old instinct that had carried her through decades of difficult rooms. Something was wrong. Not just rude. Wrong. Marcus would not meet her eyes. Simone looked pale. Franklin had revealed a door he had not meant to open. Elara reached for her water and asked softly, "Did someone else help structure their house purchase?" The silence was brief, but it was enough. Veronica set down her glass, leaned forward, and smiled with perfect control. "Marcus and Simone need freedom from unnecessary burdens," she said, "and perhaps it's time we spoke honestly about what that means." Elara did not answer right away. She looked at Veronica's face, then Franklin's, then Marcus's. The silence after Veronica's sentence had a different weight from the earlier pauses. This was no longer about manners or class or which fork belonged with which course. Something had shifted into the open, something planned and polished enough that Veronica seemed almost relieved to finally reach it. Marcus set his fork down. "Veronica, I don't think this is the time." Veronica turned toward him with a gentle expression that did not match her eyes. "Marcus, difficult conversations never feel convenient. That doesn't mean they should be avoided." Franklin nodded once, as if the matter had already been decided. Avoidance creates bigger problems. Elara sat very still. Her phone remained inside her tote, recording. The sealed envelope she had brought pressed against the side of her old wallet. Across the table, the cream-colored envelope with her name on it remained near Veronica's purse, untouched but waiting. "What exactly are we discussing?" Elara asked. Veronica folded her hands. "Your place in Marcus and Simone's life." Marcus looked pained. "That sounds harsher than she means." Elara turned to him. "Does it?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. Simone reached for her wineglass, then seemed to think better of it. Her hand dropped back into her lap. Elara saw shame in her face, but shame without action had begun to feel like another kind of silence. Veronica continued smoothly. "Please understand, Elara, this comes from concern. Marcus is a devoted son. Anyone can see that, but devotion can become pressure when boundaries are unclear." "Boundaries," Elara repeated. "Yes, healthy ones." Veronica's smiles widened slightly, as if she had chosen the word carefully. Young marriages need space. They need freedom to build without constant emotional obligations. Franklin leaned forward. "Especially when there are financial differences between families. Those differences create expectations, even when no one admits them." Elara heard the accusation beneath the elegance. They believed she expected something from Marcus. Support, money, attention, perhaps all three. She looked at her son again. "Have I asked you for money, Marcus?" His head lifted. "No." "Have I asked you to pay my rent?" "No." "Have I asked you to handle my bills, my medical appointments, my groceries, or my transportation?" He swallowed. "No, Mom." "Then what obligation are we discussing?" No one answered quickly. Veronica's fingers touched the envelope beside her purse, just lightly. Enough for Elara to notice. Sometimes obligations are emotional. They don't always appear on paper. Elara felt a small, cold anger rise in her chest. Not the loud kind, the useful kind, the kind that sharpened memory. "Emotional obligations," she said. "Such as dinner with my son?" Veronica's smile weakened. "That is not what I meant. It is what you said." Franklin cleared his throat. "Mrs. Morgan, no one is trying to separate you from your son." Elara almost smiled at the careful phrasing. "No one is trying. Not no one would. Not no one has discussed it." Just a sentence built to avoid being pinned down later. Veronica picked up the cream-colored envelope. The movement was small, but the table changed around it. Marcus's shoulders tightened. Simone looked away. Franklin's expression settled into a businesslike calm. They all knew what was inside, Elara realized. Maybe not every detail, but enough. Enough to know this conversation had been arranged before she walked through the door. "Elara," Veronica said, "Franklin and I discussed this carefully. We know independence matters to you. It matters to us too. We are not trying to insult you." "That usually comes before an insult," Elara said. Marcus whispered, "Mom." She did not look at him. Veronica's smile disappeared for one brief second, then returned. "We would like to offer support, something modest, private, no embarrassment, no strings that would make you feel controlled." Elara's eyes lowered to the envelope. "No strings," she said. "Only mutual understanding," Franklin added. There it was, not strings, understanding, the language of people who wanted control but disliked the sound of it. Veronica slid the envelope halfway across the table. $700 a month. The number landed quietly, but it struck hard. Elara did not touch the envelope. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. Simone whispered, "Mom, please don't." Veronica ignored her. "It isn't meant to replace income. It's just a cushion. Groceries, prescriptions, transportation, small comforts. A woman living alone should have those." Elara looked at the envelope as if it belonged to someone else. $700. A figure chosen by people who believed they were being generous, a price they had placed on her absence. "And in return?" Elara asked. Veronica blinked. "Return?" Franklin answered because he was less skilled at pretending. "Reasonable distance." Veronica shot him a quick look, then softened her tone again. What Franklin means is that Marcus and Simone need room, fewer unexpected calls, fewer visits, less guilt when they can't include you in every decision. Elara turned to Marcus. Did I make unexpected visits? No, he said, barely audible. Did I call too often? He rubbed his forehead. It's not about that. Then what is it about? His mouth tightened. He looked trapped, but not by Elara. By the people whose approval he had invited into the center of his life. Veronica leaned toward Elara. Marcus worries, that is all. He worries you are lonely. He worries your work may not last forever. He worries that someday he will have to choose between being a good husband and being a good son. Elara felt that one deeply. Not because it was true, because it had been rehearsed to sound true. She could picture it now, Veronica and Franklin speaking to Marcus before dinner, telling him they understood his burden, telling him he should not feel guilty, telling him mature families handled these matters directly. Perhaps Simone had sat there, silent and uncomfortable, the way she sat now. Elara placed her hand inside her tote, found her phone, and pressed one button without taking it out. The screen lit briefly. The recording continued. She checked the timestamp. Good. Then she slipped the phone deeper into the bag. It steadied her. Not because she planned revenge, but because later, when Marcus tried to soften this, when someone said Veronica only meant well, Elara would have the exact words. She would not be gaslit out of what she had heard. That is very thoughtful, Elara said. Veronica relaxed slightly, mistaking control for surrender. I'm glad you understand. I didn't say I understood. I said it was thoughtful. Franklin frowned. Elara looked at the envelope again. $700 a month for me to step back from my son. Veronica's face tightened. That is an ugly way to frame a kind offer. It is the clearest way. Marcus's voice broke through, low and strained. Mom, maybe they meant well. The words hit her harder than the envelope. Elara looked at him. For a moment, she no longer saw the man in the dark suit sitting across from her. She saw all the years she had protected him from adult worries, the bills she never mentioned, the opportunities she helped create without asking for praise, the long nights when she came home exhausted and still answered his calls with warmth because he was her son and loving him had never felt like work. And now he sat there, asking her to interpret humiliation generously because truth would make the room uncomfortable. Maybe, she said softly. Marcus looked relieved for half a second. Then Elara reached for the envelope. Veronica watched her hand with quiet satisfaction. Elara did not open it. She turned it over once, noting the weight, the sealed flap, the expensive paper. Then she placed it beside her plate, pulled her own old envelope from her tote, and set it near her water glass. Everyone noticed. Simone's eyes narrowed with confusion. Franklin stared at it. Marcus looked at Elara as if he had just realized she had arrived prepared. Veronica recovered first. What is that? Something I brought for myself, Elara said. For yourself? Yes. What is inside? Elara met her gaze. A reminder not to sign anything, accept anything, or agree to anything when people are more interested in managing me than knowing me. The table fell silent. A server passed behind Elara with a tray of desserts, unaware that the air at the end of the table had turned sharp enough to cut. Veronica's expression hardened. Franklin's jaw shifted. Marcus whispered her name, but this time Elara did not soften. She turned the cream envelope back toward Veronica. I won't accept it, Elara, Veronica said, voice low. Don't be proud at your own expense. Pride isn't the issue. Then what is? Elara picked up her napkin, folded it once, and set it beside her plate. Her voice stayed calm, but something in it had changed. The issue is that you just offered me money to make myself smaller in my son's life. Veronica's mouth opened, then closed. Franklin leaned forward. That is not a fair interpretation. It is the only honest one. Marcus looked miserable now. Simone looked close to tears, but neither of them had stopped it. Neither of them had warned her. Neither of them had protected her from walking into a dinner where an envelope with her name was already waiting. Elara's gaze returned to Marcus. Did you know about this before tonight? His silence answered before his voice did. I knew they wanted to help, he said. Help! Elara nodded slowly. The word felt like the final insult of the evening so far. Not because Veronica had said it, because Marcus had. Then Veronica drew the envelope back toward herself, her composure returning in a colder form. I see. So you prefer to make this difficult? No, Elara said. I prefer to make this clear. Veronica's eyes sharpened. Clear is good. Then let me be clear too. Marcus and Simone are building a future. They cannot do that if every decision must bend around your feelings. Elara felt the last tender hope inside her go still. There it was, not hidden now. Not wrapped in concern, she had been named as the obstacle. She reached into her tote, touched her phone again, and stopped the recording. Then she saved it under a title only she would understand. Dinner. First envelope. When she looked up, Veronica was watching her closely. "Elara," Veronica said, "I think it is time you decide whether you want to be part of their future or the reason they struggle to have one." Elara rested her hands on the table. For the first time all night, she let the timid posture fall away. And then she asked, quietly enough that everyone had to lean in to hear, "Veronica, is $700 really what you think a mother is worth?" For a moment, no one moved. The question sat between them more heavily than the envelope had. Veronica's eyes narrowed, but she did not answer. Franklin looked offended in the quiet, rigid way of men who were used to being agreed with. Simone stared at her plate as if shame had become something physical pressing her down. Marcus looked at Elara with a mixture of hurt and panic, as though her calmness frightened him more than anger would have. "That is unfair," Veronica said at last. Elara did not look away. "Is it? We offered kindness, you offered conditions. We offered support, you offered distance." Franklin's hand flattened against the table. "Mrs. Morgan, this tone isn't productive." Elara turned toward him. "Productive for whom?" His mouth tightened. "For the family." "The family," Elara repeated softly. "Interesting. I've been sitting at the far end of this table all night while you discuss me like an expense category. Now suddenly I'm part of the family?" Marcus flinched. That small movement reached her more than any apology could have. Somewhere beneath his shame, he knew this had been wrong from the start. Veronica drew herself straighter. "You're twisting everything." "No," Elara said, "I'm repeating it clearly." Simone finally lifted her head. Her eyes were wet, but her voice came out small. "Mom, maybe we should stop." Veronica did not even turn to her. "Simone, adults are talking." That sentence changed the air again. Elara saw Simone shrink, not dramatically, just enough. A woman at the same table as her husband and parents, dressed beautifully, old enough to run her own life, still being dismissed like she had no right to disagree. Elara filed that away. Veronica did not only manage outsiders, she managed everyone. Marcus rubbed both hands over his face. "This isn't how I wanted tonight to go." Elara looked at him then. "How did you want it to go?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. "You invited me here," she said. "You let me walk into a dinner where your in-laws already had an envelope with my name on it. You knew they wanted to help. You knew they thought I was some kind of future burden. And now you're upset because I noticed." His face paled. "Mom, I didn't know they were going to say it like that. But you knew they were going to say something." He looked down. That was enough. The pain was clean now, not confusing, not blurred by excuses. Marcus had not planned the insult, but he had opened the door for it and hoped she would be quiet enough to make it painless for him. Elara reached for Veronica's envelope and pushed it farther away with 2 fingers. "I came here tonight dressed this way for a reason." Veronica blinked. "Dressed this?" "Yes." Franklin gave a dry laugh. "I'm not sure what that means. It means I wanted to know how you would treat me if you believed I had nothing you wanted." Silence. This time it was not discomfort. It was recognition. Marcus stared at her. Simone's lips parted slightly. Veronica's hand paused over her wine glass. Elara continued, her voice steady. "I chose the plain dress, the old tote, the taxi. I didn't correct Marcus when he described me as simple. I didn't correct you when you assumed I couldn't understand the menu. I let you order for me. I let you speak." Veronica recovered quickly. "So you admit this was a performance, a test," Elara said, "and you answered it." Franklin's expression hardened. "That is manipulative." Elara almost smiled. "You brought a payment plan to dinner for a woman you had never met. Let's not pretend manipulation began with my shoes." Simone covered her mouth with one hand. It was not amusement. It looked more like horror at hearing the truth spoken plainly. Marcus leaned forward. "Mom, why would you do that?" "Because your voice on the phone made me feel like you were ashamed of me." His eyes filled with something close to grief, but he did not deny it fast enough. Elara's throat tightened. She had not expected that part to hurt so much once spoken aloud. For days she had carried the feeling quietly, turning it over, trying to make it smaller. But saying it at the table made it real. Marcus whispered, "I'm not ashamed of you." "Then why did you lie?" He mouth swelled. "I didn't lie. You told Franklin you offered to pick me up. That was nothing." "No. It was small. That's different." The distinction hung there. Elara reached into her tote and took out her phone. She did not unlock it. She simply placed it on the table beside her old envelope. The gesture was calm, but everyone noticed. "I've learned that small things matter," she said. "Small lies, small silences, small choices to let someone else be humiliated because correcting it might embarrass you." Marcus looked at the phone. "Were you recording us?" Elara held his gaze. "For myself." Veronica's face changed sharply. "That is outrageous, more outrageous than offering to pay me to disappear. That is not what we did." Then you should be grateful there is a record of what you did. Franklin leaned back, measuring her differently now. He no longer looked merely offended. He looked cautious. Good, Elara thought. Not powerful, not yet, but no longer invisible. Veronica's voice dropped. Be very careful, Elara. You are making yourself look unstable. There it was, the first direct threat to her credibility. Elara felt it land. She did not react. Instead, she unlocked her phone, opened her notes, and typed one line in front of them. Veronica used word unstable after recording a mentioned. Then she set the phone down again. What are you doing? Veronica asked, writing down what was said. That's absurd. No, it's careful. Marcus looked from Elara to Veronica, finally beginning to understand that the conversation had crossed into something more serious than family tension. Simone looked frightened now, but not of Elara. Her fear had shifted toward her mother. Franklin spoke more slowly. Mrs. Morgan, nobody is threatening you. I didn't say you were. Then why are you documenting things? Because people with money often believe their version becomes the official version. That struck him. Elara saw it in the way his jaw tightened. Veronica laughed once, short and cold. You came here pretending to be poor, and now you're lecturing us about honesty. I came here to see whether poverty would change how you treated me. And did it? Elara looked around the table, at the seat farthest from the center, at the meal ordered without her permission, at the envelope still lying there like a receipt for disrespect, at Marcus, who had not defended her until it was too late. Yes, she said, it did. Simone's tears finally slipped over. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. I'm sorry, she whispered. Veronica turned on her immediately. Do not apologize for your family trying to protect your marriage. Simone's face hardened for a second, then crumpled. Protect it from what? Marcus's mother? From dependency, Franklin said. Elara caught the word and held it. Dependency, there it is. He did not back away. Yes, dependency. You may not like the word, but it's a reality. Marcus is building a household with our daughter. If your circumstances become unstable, that affects them. My circumstances, Elara repeated. Veronica pointed gently toward the envelope. We tried to address that kindly. No, Elara said. You tried to control the outcome before knowing the facts. And what facts are those? Franklin asked. The question came sharper than before, not curious, challenging. Elara could feel the turn approaching. The part of the night where she could either continue letting them define her or begin removing the mask. But she was not ready to reveal everything. Not yet. She wanted to see how far they would go when they still believed they held the higher ground. So she chose a smaller truth. I work in operations, she said. Veronica blinked, impatient. You said that already. I didn't say what kind. Franklin's eyes narrowed slightly. Elara folded her hands. Before tonight goes any further, I want to know something. Who decided I was a burden? Was it you, Veronica? Franklin? Simone? Or did my son sit with you and let that word grow until it sounded reasonable? Marcus looked stricken. Mom, no, she said, her voice firm but not loud. You wanted me here, so answer me here. He could not. Veronica answered for him. Marcus is a good man who worries about his mother. There is no shame in that. There is shame in letting other people turn that worry into a leash. The sentence landed hard. For the first time all night, Veronica's perfect mask cracked. Her eyes flashed with anger before she smoothed it away. Franklin placed his napkin on the table. I think we've heard enough vague accusations. Elara turned toward him. Then ask a specific question, she said. Franklin held her gaze. Fine. Who exactly do you think you are? The words were meant to put her back in place. Instead, they opened the door. Elara looked at her phone, at her envelope, at the son who had underestimated her, and at the woman who had tried to price her love. Then she reached into her tote and touched the sealed envelope she had brought from home. For the first time that night, she considered opening it. Elara's fingers rested against the sealed envelope in her tote, but she did not take it out. Not yet. Franklin's question still hung over the table. Whose exactly do you think you are? It had been asked with a kind of practiced superiority, the sort of tone meant to force a person back into her assigned place. Elara recognized that tone. She had heard versions of it in conference rooms, contract disputes, vendor negotiations, and executive meetings where men assumed calm meant weakness. She let the silence stretch long enough for Franklin to grow uncomfortable. Then she said, someone who has spent a long time listening before speaking. Veronica gave a thin smile. That sounds poetic, but it doesn't answer the question. It answers more than you think. Franklin leaned back. Mrs. Morgan, we are not here to play word games. No, Elara said. You came prepared to play financial ones, Simone inhaled sharply. Marcus looked down again, but this time his silence felt different. He was no longer simply embarrassed. He was beginning to look afraid of where this might go. Veronica's face tightened. You keep using hostile language. I'm using accurate language. Accurate? Franklin said. You came here dressed in a costume, recorded a private conversation, and accused people you barely know of manipulation. If anyone at this table is acting strangely, it isn't us. Elara nodded once as if she had expected that. She picked up her phone and typed another note. Franklin reframed recording as instability. The act was small but deliberate. She did not hide it. Veronica watched every movement now. So did Franklin. Their confidence depended on controlling the room, and Elara had just shown them she could preserve what happened inside it. Marcus finally spoke. Mom, please stop writing things down. Elara looked at him. Why? Because it makes this feel like a legal matter. It started feeling like a legal matter when an envelope with my name on it was placed on this table before I arrived. That was not legal, Veronica said quickly. It was personal. Financial control is often personal. Veronica's cheeks colored. You are being dramatic. Elara did not answer her. She turned to Marcus. Did they ask you anything about my accounts? His eyes flashed with surprise. Too much surprise, no, he said. Did they ask whether I own my apartment? No. Did they ask whether I had savings? Mom, no. But he answered too quickly on the last one. Elara saw it, so did Simone. Simone's face shifted, not with guilt this time, but recognition. Veronica placed her wineglass down with a soft click. This is absurd. No one is interested in your savings, Elara. Then why did you ask what I survive on each month? Because we were concerned. Concern usually begins with listening. You began with a number. Franklin's patience thinned. Fine. Since you insist on being difficult, let us be direct. Marcus is trying to build a future. Simone is trying to build a future. The last thing they need is unclear family dependency. Elara's gaze stayed calm. And you believe I am that dependency. We believe, Veronica said, recovering control, that you may become one. It was honest enough to be cruel. Marcus's hand tightened around his glass. Mom isn't asking me for anything. Not now, Franklin said. But planning is about later. Elara noticed the word planning. She stored it beside refinance, structure, and future. Their language kept circling around documents they had not named. What kind of planning? She asked. Franklin's eyes narrowed. Marcus spoke first. It's just financial planning. Yours? Yes. And Simone's? Yes. And Veronica's? His mouth opened, but no answer came. Elara felt the room tilt slightly in her favor. Not much, not enough. But enough to know she had touched something real. Veronica stepped in. Families with resources plan together. That is not sinister. No, Elara said, but secrecy makes it questionable. Simone finally lifted her head. Mom, what did Dad mean about the refinancing? Veronica looked at her daughter with visible irritation. Not now. Yes, now, Simone said, though her voice trembled. Because I didn't know we were discussing refinancing tonight. Franklin's expression changed. It was quick, but Elara caught it. Annoyance. Not at being questioned by Elara, but at Simone breaking formation. Marcus looked at Simone. We were going to talk about it later. Simone stared at him. You knew? It wasn't final. What wasn't final? Veronica reached for Simone's hand, but Simone pulled back. It was the first clear act of resistance Elara had seen from her all night. Remained still, letting the question breathe. Franklin exhaled through his nose. This is exactly why these discussions should happen calmly and privately. Then perhaps you should not have started one publicly, Elara said. His eyes moved to her, colder now. You are enjoying this. No, she replied. I am paying attention. The waiter approached with the roasted potatoes Elara had ordered earlier. He must have sensed the tension because he placed the dish down quietly and disappeared without asking whether anyone needed anything else. Elara looked at the potatoes, then almost laughed at the strange timing. That small order had seemed like a tiny act of self-respect minutes ago. Now it sat beside a conversation about dependency, control, and possible financial arrangements involving her son's home. She did not touch the food. Franklin turned to Marcus. You need to explain this to your mother before she invents something uglier. Marcus's face tightened. There's nothing ugly. Then say it clearly, Elara said. He looked at Simone first. That told Elara enough to make her stomach drop. Veronica and Franklin helped us with the down payment, Marcus said. Simone frowned. I knew that. Marcus looked pained. There may have been some paperwork. Simone went still. What paperwork? Veronica's voice became firm. Standard family documentation. Nothing alarming. Elara looked at Simone. Did you sign it? Simone shook her head slowly. I signed a lot at closing. I don't know what he means. Franklin gave a tight smile. Exactly. Closing paperwork is complicated. That's why families help one another navigate it. Elara felt the words settle into place. Help, navigate, structure, refinance. The terms were too careful to be accidental. What did the document say? She asked. Franklin looked at her as if she had overstepped. that is between the married couple and the people who help them, then why am I being asked to step out of Marcus's life tonight? Veronica's eyes flashed. Because this is what you do. You take a responsible conversation and twist it until everyone else looks cruel. No, Elara said. I ask one question at a time. Marcus put both hands on the table. Mom, stop. Please, you're making this worse. Elara's chest tightened, but her voice stayed even. No, Marcus, I'm making it visible. He looked wounded by that. Part of her wanted to comfort him, but another part of her knew comfort had become the very thing that allowed him to avoid truth. She had protected him too long from discomfort. Veronica lowered her voice. You should be grateful your son still worries about including you after this behavior. Elara turned slowly toward her. Including me? Yes. At the far end of the table? Veronica looked away. At a dinner where my meal was chosen for me? No answer. With an envelope prepared to buy distance from my son? Veronica's lips pressed together. Elara looked at Marcus again. You asked me on the phone not to make things complicated. Did you know your house was complicated already? That question hit him like a slap. Simone looked at Marcus, waiting. He did not answer. The silence told her more than any confession could have. Marcus did not know everything, but he knew enough. He had hidden enough. And tonight, when the pressure came, he had chosen quiet over honesty. Elara reached into her tote and finally drew out the sealed envelope she had brought from home. She placed it beside her phone, then she opened it carefully. Inside was not a bank statement, not a threat, not a dramatic reveal. It was a single page she had printed that morning and folded in half. At the top was the contact information for Dana Whitfield, her longtime attorney. Beneath it, in Elara's handwriting, were 3 reminders. Do not accept money with conditions. Do not discuss assets under pressure. Document anything that feels coordinated. Veronica stared at the page. Franklin looked from the paper to Elara with a new alertness. You brought an attorney's information to dinner? Franklin asked. Elara folded the page again. I brought a reminder to trust myself. Marcus's voice was low. Mom, why would you think you needed that? Elara looked at him gently, and that gentleness seemed to hurt him more than anger would have. Because when you called me Marcus, you did not sound like a son inviting his mother to dinner. You sounded like a man preparing her for judgment, his eyes filled with shame. Veronica pushed back from the table slightly. I will not sit here and be insulted by a woman who clearly came looking for a fight. Elara put the attorney's page back into the envelope and slipped it into her tote. No, she said, I came looking for the truth, and I'm closer to it than I was when I walked in. Franklin stood halfway, then sat again as nearby diners glanced over. He lowered his voice. You still haven't answered my question. Elara knew exactly which one he meant. Who exactly do you think you are? She looked at him, then at Veronica, then at Marcus. She could reveal enough now to change the room. Not all of it, just enough to stop them from treating her like someone who could be managed with pity and paper. I told you I work in operations, she said. Veronica gave a brittle laugh. Yes, paperwork. Elara's eyes stayed on Franklin. Regional operations. His expression shifted almost as imperceptibly. For what company? He asked. Elara named it. The table went quiet. Franklin recognized the name. She saw it happen in his face before he could hide it. Then Veronica leaned back, still trying to sound dismissive, and said, Regional operations can mean many things, Elara. It's still employment. Elara picked up her water glass, took a slow sip, and set it down. Yes, she said. Employment where I oversee 5 states, review multi-million-dollar vendor contracts, and manage compliance decisions that affect more than 10,000 employees. Marcus stared at her as if she had suddenly begun speaking another language. Simone whispered, Marcus? But Marcus did not answer. He was looking at his mother, and for the first time that night, Elara saw the beginning of a question he should have asked years ago. Marcus did not speak. He just stared at Elara as if the woman sitting across from him had become someone unfamiliar. The look hurt more than she expected. Not because he was shocked, but because the shock proved how little he had known. For years, he had accepted the surface of her life, because it was easier than asking what lived underneath. Franklin was the first to recover. You oversee 5 states. It was not quite a question. Yes, Elara said. For a medical supply corporation, yes. His gaze sharpened. Which division? Regional logistics and compliance. That changed his expression again. He knew enough now, not everything, but enough to understand this was not clerical work, not harmless paperwork, not the small office job Veronica had politely imagined. Veronica looked between them, irritated by a conversation she could not control. Well, titles can sound impressive. Companies invent all kinds of names now. Franklin did not laugh. That silence told Elara more than any compliment would have. Simone turned toward Marcus. You didn't know? Marcus's mouth moved once before any sound came out. No, Veronica seized the opening. And why would he? Elara apparently prefers secrecy. Elara looked at her. Privacy, there's a difference? Yes. Privacy protects peace. Secrecy protects lies. Then which were you protecting? The question was sharp, and for one moment it struck too close. Elara felt it. She had hidden too much from Marcus. She could admit that to herself, even if she would not hand Veronica the satisfaction of seeing it. Her choice had been made from love, but love did not always prevent damage. Sometimes it simply gave damage a gentler name. I was protecting my son from believing money was the most important thing about me, Elara said. Marcus lowered his eyes. Franklin leaned back slowly. He no longer looked amused. He looked as though he was recalculating every comment he had made since she arrived. That, more than anything, showed Elara how money changed people. They did not become kinder when they suspected power. They became careful. Veronica was not careful yet. Her pride would not allow it. You expect us to believe, she said, that you hold some major position and still live in that apartment? Elara tilted her head. That apartment is quiet, and take taxis? When I prefer not to drive, and wear clothes like this, when they're comfortable. Veronica gave a short, disbelieving laugh. That is convenient. No, Elara said, it is choice. The word choice steadied her. All night they had treated her simplicity like evidence of failure, but she had chosen nearly every part of it. The apartment, the older bag, the plain clothes. The refusal to turn her life into a display case. She had not always been right, but she had not been helpless. Marcus finally spoke, his voice rough. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? Elara looked at him, and the anger inside her softened into something sadder. Because you never asked in a way that made room for the answer. He flinched. She did not enjoy hurting him. That was the difference between truth and revenge. Revenge wanted a wound. Truth sometimes caused one and stayed long enough to face it. I asked about work, Marcus said quietly. You asked if I was tired. You asked if I was busy. You asked if I could still make Sunday dinner sometimes. You asked if I needed anything. She paused. You never asked what decisions I made when I left the house every morning. His face reddened. Simone wiped her cheek with the back of one finger. She looked less embarrassed by Elara now and more shaken by her own place in the room. Marcus told me you worked at an office. I do. He said you'd keeping busy. I do. Veronica folded her arms. This is exactly the problem. You speak in half-truths and then act offended when people misunderstand. Elara met her gaze. You didn't misunderstand. You assumed. Veronica's lips tightened. Franklin cleared his throat, stepping into the conversation with more caution now. Mrs. Morgan, if your position is as significant as you describe, you must understand why presentation matters. Elara almost smiled. He had adjusted quickly. Now he was not mocking her poverty. He was questioning why she had not displayed wealth properly. I understand presentation, she said. I also understand performance. Tonight has offered plenty of both. His eyes narrowed. Veronica leaned forward. And what exactly is that supposed to mean? It means you were kind only when kindness cost nothing. The moment you believed I lacked status, you treated me like a liability. That is not true. Elara picked up her phone and placed it gently beside her plate again. She did not play the recording. She did not need to, not yet. The reminder was enough. Veronica noticed and looked away first. The shift was small but undeniable. Marcus saw it too. His eyes moved from Elara's phone to Veronica's face, and Elara could almost see the uncomfortable thought forming in him. If Veronica had done nothing wrong, why did the record bother her so much? Franklin changed tactics. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that we misjudged your employment. That still doesn't change the larger concern. Elara's gaze sharpened. Which is family boundaries. No, Elara said. The larger concern is control. Veronica laughed coldly. Control, you keep saying that, because it keeps appearing. Franklin's jaw flexed. You are not involved in Marcus and Simone's finances. Then stop using my supposed poverty as a reason to discuss them. That silenced him. Simone looked at her father. Dad, what paperwork did Marcus mean? Franklin's expression became blank in a way that looked practiced. This is not the setting. It became the setting when you brought it up, Simone said. Her voice was still quiet, but something had changed inside it. Elara felt it. So did Veronica. Simone, Veronica warned. No, Simone said. I want to know. Marcus stared at his wife as if she had stepped out of line in a room where he had not known there were lines. Elara watched carefully. This was no longer only about her. It never had been. Veronica and Franklin had come to manage one woman they believed was weak. Instead, they had exposed a pattern. Franklin set down his fork. We helped with the down payment. There were documents to ensure everyone understood the nature of that help. That is responsible. Simone's face went pale. I thought it was a gift. Veronica quickly reached for her. It was help, sweetheart. That's not the same word. The table went still again. Elara felt the recording she had saved like a quiet anchor, but this was new. This part was not recorded anymore. She reached for her phone, turned the voice memo app back on beneath the table, and placed the phone face down beside her plate. This time she did not hide it. Franklin saw. "You are recording again," he said. "Yes, I do not consent." "Then stop speaking about financial arrangements you don't want remembered." His face darkened. Marcus whispered, "Mom." Elara did not move her eyes from Franklin. If the paperwork is honest, there is no reason to fear accurate memory. Veronica pushed her chair back slightly. "This has become ridiculous." "No," Simone said, surprising everyone. "It has become clear." Veronica stared at her daughter. "You are upset. We can discuss this privately." "Privately is how I apparently missed that my parents may have paperwork tied to my house." Franklin held up one hand. "No one said tied. You said documents," Simone replied. Marcus said paperwork. "Mom called it help." Elara asked one question, and none of you answered clearly. Elara looked at Simone with new attention. Until tonight, she had seen her daughter-in-law mostly through distance and discomfort, but now Simone was doing something Marcus had not done for years. She was challenging the person who controlled the room. Marcus looked lost between them all. It was just supposed to protect everyone. Elara turned to him. "Who told you that?" His silence answered. Veronica spoke before he could. "We did, because responsible adults think ahead." Elara nodded slowly. "And irresponsible adults sign things they don't understand because someone wealthy tells them not to worry." Marcus's face tightened with shame. "I didn't think it mattered." Simone looked at him. "You signed something without telling me? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like?" He looked toward Franklin, and that look confirmed more than Elara wanted to know. Marcus had not merely accepted help. He had accepted guidance, maybe pressure, maybe promises, maybe a version of security that came with invisible hooks. Elara stopped the recording and saved it. Dinner, house paperwork. Veronica watched the title appear before Elara darkened the screen. Her face shifted again, this time with anger she could not fully hide. "You are making enemies at this table," Veronica said softly. Elara looked at her. "No, I am identifying them." Marcus's voice broke. "Mom, don't say that. I didn't want to." That landed between them quietly. For the first time, Marcus looked not embarrassed, not defensive, but wounded by the possibility that his mother no longer felt safe with him. Elara wished that realization had come earlier, before the envelope, before the silence, before her own son had helped strangers imagine her as a burden. Franklin reached for his wine and finished it. "This conversation is over." "No," Elara said, "this part is over." She placed her phone back into her tote, then slipped her attorney's contact page deeper behind her wallet. The action was small but final. She had enough for tonight. Not enough to understand everything, but enough to know she needed Dana Whitfield on Monday morning. Veronica seemed to sense the decision. "Running away now?" Elara looked at her almost gently. "You mistake leaving with losing. I think you do that often." Veronica's mouth tightened. Before she could answer, Marcus leaned forward. "Mom, please just tell me one thing." Elara paused. "How much do you actually make?" The question was not cruel this time. It was desperate, but it still hurt. After everything said at that table, after the envelope and the house paperwork and the years of not asking, this was the question that finally came. Elara looked at him for a long moment. Then she answered, not loudly, not proudly, but clearly, "About $40,000 a month." Marcus went completely still. Simone's hand flew to her mouth. Franklin's eyes narrowed with disbelief, then calculation. Veronica stared at Elara as if the plain gray dress had turned into an accusation. Elara picked up her old tote and stood. "And Marcus," she said, her voice softening, in spite of everything, "the saddest part is not that you didn't know." He looked up at her, pale and silent. "The saddest part," she said, "is that you never thought there was anything worth knowing." Elara did not move after she spoke. The words remained in the space between her and Marcus, plain and irreversible. About $40,000 a month. She had not said them to impress anyone. She had not raised her voice. Yet the number had done what hours of insult had failed to do. It had made every person at the table reconsider the woman they had already decided she was. Marcus looked hollowed out. 40,000, he repeated, almost under his breath. Elara held her tote against her side. Approximately. It varies with compensation cycles, but that is close enough. Veronica laughed once, but the sound came out thin. That's absurd. Franklin did not laugh. He studied Elara with a new kind of attention, and she disliked that more than his contempt. Contempt was simple. Calculation was not. "You're saying you make nearly $500,000 a year," he said. "I'm saying you never bothered to learn who you were speaking to." Veronica's eyes flashed. You sat here and let us misunderstand you. No, Elara said. I sat here and watched what you did with the misunderstanding. Simone had gone very still. Her gaze moved between Marcus and Elara, and something like grief settled over her face. Marcus, she whispered. You really didn't know? Marcus shook his head slowly. No. Elara felt the sadness of that more deeply than the satisfaction. She had wanted to teach her son humility, independence, the value of building his own life. She had not wanted to become a stranger in his mind, yet somehow that was what had happened. Her silence had protected him from greed, perhaps, but it had also protected him from knowing her. Veronica set her napkin on the table with careful force. This is exactly what I mean. A woman who hides this kind of information from her own son is not honest. Elara looked at her. A woman who offers money to remove a mother from her son's life should be careful using the word honest. Franklin's jaw tightened. You made fools of us. No, Elara said. You judged me. There is a difference. Marcus stood then, slowly, as if his body had moved before his thoughts had caught up. Mom, please sit down. She looked at him. Not long ago, that request would have moved her. She would have sat, because her son looked distressed. She would have softened the room for him. She would have swallowed her own hurt to make everyone comfortable. But tonight, comfort had become too expensive. I'm leaving, she said. Please don't. Marcus! His name came out gentle, and that gentleness stopped him. I need air, and you need to decide whether you want to understand what happened tonight, or just survive the embarrassment of it. His face tightened with pain. Veronica pushed her chair back. So you reveal some dramatic salary claim and walk away before anyone can ask reasonable questions. Elara turned to her. You had all night to ask reasonable questions. You chose different ones. Franklin glanced around the restaurant. A few nearby diners had begun to notice the tension. He lowered his voice. Let's not create a scene. Elara nearly smiled. Now privacy matters. He said nothing. The waiter approached cautiously. Is everything all right here? Franklin answered before anyone else could. We'll take the check. His tone made it clear the dinner was over, not resolved, just ended by a man who preferred bills to feelings because bills could be settled. The waiter nodded and left. Elara remained standing. She did not rush. She took her phone from the table, checked that both recordings were saved, and placed it deep inside her tote. Then she removed a small business card from her wallet, not one with her title, not the corporate one, a plain card with only her name and a phone number she used for personal matters. She set it in front of Marcus. If you want to talk tomorrow, call me. Not tonight, not while everyone is still performing. He stared at the card as if she had handed him something fragile. Mom, he said, voice breaking. Veronica's chair scraped. This is manipulative. Elara looked at her calmly. No, this is a boundary. That word landed differently now. Earlier, Veronica had used it as a tool to reduce Elara's place in Marcus's life. Elara used it as a door she controlled herself. The waiter returned with the leather folder and placed it near Franklin. Franklin opened it, glanced at the total, and took out a sleek black card. His movements were efficient, almost relieved. Money was familiar ground. Money could restore order. He slid the card into the folder and handed it back. No one spoke while the waiter walked away. Simone wiped her eyes again, then looked directly at Elara. I'm sorry, she said. Elara studied her daughter-in-law for a moment. The apology was not enough. Not yet. But it was the first sentence Simone had spoken all night that did not seem shaped by someone else. I believe you are beginning to be, Elara said. Simone nodded once, tears spilling again. Veronica looked disgusted. Simone, stop humiliating yourself. Simone turned to her mother. I'm not the one who did that. The words were quiet, but they changed the table. Marcus looked at his wife with surprise. Franklin's face hardened. Veronica stared at Simone as if she had forgotten daughters could speak without permission. Before Veronica could answer, the waiter returned. He leaned slightly toward Franklin, professional and discreet. Sir, I'm sorry. This card didn't go through. It may be a travel security issue. Would you like me to try another? Franklin's face reddened, not with panic, but with immediate embarrassment. Run it again. Of course. The waiter left. Veronica's eyes flicked toward nearby tables. It's the bank, she said quickly. They do that when we travel. No one said otherwise, Elara replied. The simple sentence seemed to irritate her more than mockery would have. Franklin pulled out his phone. I'll handle it. Marcus reached for his wallet. I can get it. No, Franklin said sharply. The words snapped across the table. Marcus withdrew his hand. Elara noticed, so did Simone. The waiter returned after another minute. His face carried the practiced discomfort of someone delivering bad news to a proud customer. I apologize, sir. It was declined again. Franklin stood abruptly. That's impossible. It may be a fraud protection hold. Yes, I know what it may be. Franklin's voice was too loud now. Several diners turned their heads. He lowered it immediately. "I'll call the bank." Veronica sat rigid, her face pale beneath makeup. The woman who had just offered Elara $700 a month now looked trapped by an $800 dinner bill. Elara took no pleasure in it, not exactly, but she recognized the lesson of the moment. Appearance was fragile. Reality had a way of arriving with a receipt. Franklin stepped away from the table with his phone pressed to his ear. The silence he's left behind was worse. Marcus looked miserable. Simone looked ashamed. Veronica stared at the check folder as though it had betrayed her. Elara opened her tote and removed her wallet. Marcus shook his head immediately. "Mom, don't." She looked at him. "I'm not doing this for them." Veronica's mouth twisted. "We do not need you to pay." "Good," Elara said. "Then consider it payment for the lesson." She took out a premium silver card. It was not flashy, no dramatic black metal, no impossible limit. Just a card she used for travel and business dinners when she preferred not to involve corporate accounts. She placed it inside the leather folder and handed it to the waiter when he passed. "Please include 25% for yourself," she said. The waiter looked relieved. "Yes, Mom." Veronica's face burned. "This is unnecessary." So was the envelope. That ended it. Franklin returned just as the waiter came back with the receipt. His expression was tight with frustration. "It's a security block. They'll clear it within the hour. The bill is settled," Veronica said stiffly. Franklin looked at Elara. For 1 second, his pride and gratitude fought across his face. Pride won barely. "I'll reimburse you," he said. Elara signed the receipt. "No." I said, "I'll reimburse you," and I said no. His nostrils flared. "Why?" She placed the pen down. "Because tonight you showed me what your generosity looks like when you believe someone is beneath you. I'd like you to remember what mine looked like when I had every reason to walk away." Franklin looked away first. Elara picked up her tote. Marcus stepped toward her. "I'll walk you out." She hesitated. The mother in her wanted to say yes. The woman who had just been measured, managed, and nearly purchased knew better. "Not yet," she said. "Stay with your wife. You two have paperwork to discuss." Simone closed her eyes briefly at the word. Elara turned and walked toward the lobby. She felt the eyes at the table on her back, but she did not turn around. Her legs felt steady until she reached the hallway near the restrooms, away from the dining room's golden light. Then the first wave of pain hit her. Not tears, not yet. Just the deep ache of knowing her son had watched too much and said too little. She stopped near the coat stand and took one careful breath. Behind her, soft footsteps approached quickly. Elara, it was Simone. Elara turned. Simone stood a few feet away, pale and shaking, no longer polished, no longer composed. "Please," she said, "don't leave yet." Elara's hand tightened around the strap of her tote. "I think enough was said." "No," Simone whispered. "Not enough." Her eyes moved toward the dining room, then back to Elara. "There's something you don't know about my parents," she said, "and I think Marcus signed something he never should have signed." Elara did not answer right away. The hallway outside the dining room felt cooler than the restaurant itself. Behind Simone, the golden noise of expensive conversation continued as if nothing had happened. People were still laughing at other tables. Glasses were still being refilled. Somewhere in the dining room, Marcus was still seated between two families and a truth he had ignored for too long. Elara looked at Simone carefully. "What do you mean he signed something?" Simone wiped beneath one eye with her fingertip, trying to keep herself composed. "I don't know exactly. That's the problem. I thought my parents helped with the down payment. I thought it was a gift, or at least family help with no pressure attached. But after what Dad said tonight, and the way Marcus reacted, I think there was more." "You said there's something I don't know about your parents." Simone glanced back toward the dining room. Her fear was immediate and familiar, not fear of being overheard by strangers, fear of being overheard by Veronica. "My parents don't give money without keeping control," she said quietly. "I should have said that before. I wanted to believe they were being generous because it was my marriage. But they track everything. Favors, checks, introductions, even dinner invitations. Nothing is ever just kindness." Elara absorbed that without surprise, but it still deepened the concern sitting in her chest. "Did they ever threaten the house?" "No, not directly." Simone shook her head, "but my mother has made comments about how Marcus and I need to be practical, about how financial stability requires loyalty, about how people who receive help should remember where it came from." Elara's hand tightened on her tote strap. "And Marcus? He hated talking about it. Every time I asked about the paperwork, he said it was handled. He said Dad had everything reviewed. By whose attorney?" Simone stared at her. That answer was enough. Elara let out a slow breath. "Simone, did you and Marcus have your own lawyer at closing?" "We had the lender's people. A title company. I thought that was normal." It is normal to have title and lender documents. It is not the same as independent advice when family money is involved. Simone looked as if the floor had shifted beneath her. I didn't know. Elara believed her, not completely, not enough to erase the silence at dinner, but enough to know Simone might have been controlled in ways she was only beginning to name. The dining room door opened behind them. Marcus stepped out. He stopped when he saw them together. "What's going on?" he asked. Simone turned to him. "What did you sign?" Marcus's face closed immediately. That quick closing told Elara more than panic would have. Panic meant confusion. His expression meant he knew the subject and wanted it buried. "Not here," he said. "Yes, here," Simone replied. Her voice shook, but she did not back down. "You said there was paperwork. What paperwork?" Marcus looked toward Elara. "Mom, this isn't your business." Elara felt the sentence strike exactly where it was meant to. After a night of being treated as an outsider, her own son had drawn the line himself. She nodded once. "You may be right." That seemed to unsettle him. "But if your in-laws are using my supposed poverty to justify pushing me away," she continued, "and if their money is tied to your house, then tonight proved those issues are connected." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't like that. That phrase has done a lot of work tonight," Elara said. Simone stepped closer to him. "Marcus, answer me." He looked exhausted now, stripped of the polished son-in-law performance. Franklin wanted documentation. He said it protected everybody. "What did it say?" Simone asked. "I don't remember every line." "Then tell me what you do remember." Marcus hesitated. "That the money could be considered an advance." Simone's face went still. "An advance on what?" "Our future support." Elara's stomach tightened. There it was. Not the whole truth, but enough to reveal the shape of the trap. Family money had been dressed as support, but somewhere inside the paperwork, obligation had been planted. Simone whispered, "Future support for who?" Marcus did not answer. Elara's voice was quiet. "For Veronica and Franklin?" Marcus looked away. Simone took a step back as if he had physically pushed her. "You signed something saying we might owe my parents support? It wasn't that simple. Was my name on it?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" Marcus's voice rose slightly. "There were a lot of documents." Franklin explained it. "He said it was common in families with assets." Elara studied him, and for the first time that night, her anger toward Marcus mixed with fear for him. He had been foolish, yes, proud, weak, but he had also been guided by someone more experienced, someone who understood how to use legal language to create emotional debt. "Marcus," she said, "do you have a copy?" He looked at her, defensive again. "Somewhere. At home, maybe. On email? I don't know. Then find out." His expression hardened. "You don't get to give orders about my house." "No," Elara said. "I don't. But I do get to warn my son when he may have signed something without understanding it." The words landed. She saw it in his face. Simone turned toward him, tears still wet but anger beginning to replace fear. "You told me my parents helped us because they loved us." "They did." "Then why didn't you tell me about the advance?" "Because I didn't think it mattered." "It mattered to me." The silence afterward was raw. Elara gave them both a moment. Then she reached into her tote and took out her phone. She opened her notes app and typed while they watched. "Possible house document. Family advance, future support," Franklin explained. Marcus unsure copy. Marcus stared. "Are you writing this down too?" "Yes." "Mom, I'm not doing it to punish you. I'm doing it because tomorrow everyone will remember this differently." He had no answer. Simone looked at the note, then at Elara. "Can you send that to me?" Marcus turned sharply. "Simone." "No," Simone said. "I want a record too." Elara paused, then sent the note to Simone by text. It was a small act, but an important one. For the first time that evening, someone else besides Elara had chosen documentation over denial. The dining room door opened again. Veronica appeared in the doorway. Her eyes moved from Simone to Marcus to Elara's phone. "What is this?" she asked. "Nothing," Marcus said too quickly. Veronica's gaze sharpened. "It does not look like nothing." Simone lifted her chin. "We were talking about the house paperwork." Veronica smiled, but the expression had no warmth left. "That is a private matter." "It's my house," Simone said. "And your marriage," Veronica replied, "which is why outsiders should not be stirring up fear." Elara looked at Marcus. "Do you see what just happened?" He looked trapped again, but this time he did not deny it. Veronica stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Elara, you have done enough damage for one evening. I asked questions. You inserted yourself into business that does not concern you. You used my supposed dependence to justify pushing me out of my son's life. That made it concern me." Veronica's eyes flicked toward the phone. "If you recorded anything, delete it." "No," the word was simple. Calm, final. Veronica stared at her as if no one had refused her in years. Marcus whispered, "Mom, maybe just." Elara turned to him. "No," he stopped. There it was. The boundary she should have drawn earlier. Not loud, not cruel, just no. Veronica's face changed. The softness disappeared entirely. "You are making a mistake, maybe," Elara said, "but it will be mine." Simone looked between them, then stepped beside Elara instead of her mother. The movement was slight, but Veronica saw it. Her expression hardened. Franklin appeared behind Veronica a moment later, phone in hand, his earlier embarrassment gone behind a cold professional mask. "We're leaving." Veronica did not take her eyes off Elara. "Yes, we are." Franklin looked at Marcus. "You and Simone should come with us. We need to discuss the damage done tonight." Simone's shoulders stiffened. "I'm not discussing anything until I see the paperwork." Franklin's gaze cooled. "Careful." The word was quiet. It was also a threat. Marcus heard it. Elara saw him hear it. For the first time, he did not look away. "What does that mean?" he asked. Franklin smiled faintly. "It means adults should not make emotional decisions about serious financial matters." Elara stepped forward just enough to draw his attention. "Then everyone should get independent advice." Franklin looked at her with contempt, returning now that his card crisis had passed. "Stay out of it." "No," Simone said. All eyes turned to her. Her voice trembled, but she held her ground. "If my parents have paperwork tied to our house and my husband signed it without fully telling me, then I want advice from someone who is not you." Veronica looked wounded, but Elara recognized the performance. "After everything we have done for you?" Simone flinched. The old guilt still had hooks in her. Elara saw it and spoke before Veronica could pull harder. "Simone, don't answer tonight. Ask for documents, then answer with facts." Simone nodded, breathing unevenly. Marcus looked at Elara, and something in his face had cracked open. Not full trust, not understanding, but the beginning of fear that his mother might be right. Veronica turned to him. "Marcus, are you going to allow this?" That was the trap. Make him choose publicly, make him prove loyalty, make him quiet the woman who had disrupted the script. Marcus looked at Veronica, then at Simone, then at Elara. "I need to see the paperwork too," he said. The sentence was quiet, but it changed everything. Veronica's eyes went flat. Franklin put a hand on her arm. "We're done here." They walked back toward the dining room to collect their things. Simone stood still, shaking. Marcus looked as if he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Elara slipped her phone back into her tote, but before she did, she sent one more text to herself with the title she knew she would need later. "Ask Dana Monday, family advance, house, future support, possible leverage." Then she looked at Marcus. "Go home," she said. "Find every document from your closing, every email, every attachment. Don't ask Franklin what it means, read it first." Marcus nodded slowly. "And if you can't find it?" Simone asked. Elara looked toward the dining room, where Veronica and Franklin had vanished behind polished wood and warm light. "Then that tells us something too." Elara left the restaurant alone. She did not wait for Marcus to walk her out. She did not look back through the glass doors to see whether Veronica and Franklin were watching. Outside, the night air was cool against her face, and for the first time in hours, she could breathe without smelling expensive perfume, wine, and polished judgment. Her taxi arrived within minutes. Only after she settled into the back seat did her hands begin to shake. She folded them tightly in her lap, embarrassed by the weakness even though no one could see it. Her body had held itself together through the dinner, through the envelope, through the recording, through the salary reveal, through Simone's warning. Now that she was alone, the cost of staying calm came due. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. "Long night?" Elara gave a small, tired smile. "Longer than I expected." He seemed to understand not to ask more. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving the restaurant behind in a blur of warm windows and valet lights. Elara took out her phone. The battery was low, but the recordings were still there. Dinner. First envelope. Dinner, house paperwork. Her notes were there too. Marcus lied about ride. Veronica used word unstable after recording mentioned. Possible house document. Family advance, future support, Franklin explained. Marcus unsure copy. Ask Dana Monday. She opened a cloud storage app and uploaded the audio files before the taxi had even reached the highway. Then she emailed copies to herself with simple subject lines that would not draw attention if someone glanced at her inbox. Personal dinner notes, house conversation notes. After that, she changed the password to her email account from the back seat of the cab. It was not panic, it was procedure. For years, her work had taught her that damage was easier to prevent than repair. People often waited until betrayal became obvious before protecting themselves. Elara had learned to move when the first pattern appeared. By the time she reached her apartment, she had stopped shaking. The building lobby was quiet. The fluorescent light above the mailboxes flickered softly. A younger woman from the third floor came in carrying takeout and smiled at her. Elara smiled back. That ordinary little exchange nearly broke her. A stranger had given her more uncomplicated kindness in 2 seconds than her own family had managed over dinner. Inside her apartment, she locked the door and leaned against it for a moment. The silence felt different tonight, not peaceful, watchful. She placed her tote on the dining table and removed each item one by one: wallet, phone, keys, the attorney's contact page, the unopened envelope from home, the receipt from the restaurant, folded neatly. She had not meant to keep the receipt, but the waiter had placed it in the folder, and she had slipped it into her bag without thinking. Now she looked at the amount, $812 before tip. More than Veronica had offered for a month of distance. Elara almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. She opened the locked drawer in her bedroom and removed a folder labeled Estate. The label was handwritten, old and calm. Inside were her will, medical directive, power of attorney documents, beneficiary notes, and a list of accounts for emergencies. Marcus was still listed in too many places: primary beneficiary, emergency contact, authorized person for certain medical updates, not access to her bank accounts. Never that. Elara had been careful, but enough that if something happened to her, Marcus would be the first person called, the first person trusted, the first person invited into decisions. She stared at his name for a long time. Then she took out a yellow sticky note and wrote one sentence: "Review all designations with Dana. Do not change while emotional." That was her rule. Never make permanent legal decisions while wounded, but never ignore the wound either. She placed the note on top of the folder and locked it back inside the drawer. Then she sat at the dining table with her laptop and opened her banking dashboard. One by one, she reviewed her accounts: checking, savings, retirement, investment transfers, credit cards. Nothing unusual appeared. Still, she updated 2 security questions and removed an old secondary phone number she no longer used. Her mouse hovered over the section labeled Recurring Transfers. There it was, a monthly transfer to Marcus. Not large enough to draw attention, not small enough to mean nothing. She had started it years earlier when Marcus had changed jobs and never stopped it. He had never asked where it came from after the first year. Maybe he had assumed she forgot. Maybe he had assumed it was nothing to her. Maybe she had made it too easy for him not to ask. Elara opened the payment history and downloaded 12 months of records. She did not cancel the transfer. Not yet. Instead, she saved the file in a folder titled Marcus Support and added another note for Dana. The habit of protecting him had not disappeared. It had simply met the need to protect herself. Her phone buzzed at 12:43 a.m. Marcus. She let it ring, then came a text. "Mom, please tell me you got home safe." Elara looked at the message for a long time. The first question he had asked about her well-being that evening had arrived after midnight, after the damage, after the paperwork, after she walked away. She typed, "Yes, I am home." His reply came quickly. "Can we talk?" She breathed in slowly, then typed back, "Not tonight. Find the documents, then we talk." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, he wrote, "I don't know where they are." Elara closed her eyes. There it was again. The cost of letting someone else manage the details of your life. "Ask your lender, title company, and your email archive," she wrote. "Search Franklin, advance, agreement, family support, down payment." This time the reply took longer. "Simone is upset." Simone's fingers paused above the keyboard. She wanted to write, "She should be." Instead, she wrote, "She has reason to be." The phone stayed silent after that. Elara slept only 3 hours. When morning arrived, she made coffee she barely tasted and called Dana Whitfield at 8:15. Dana answered on the 3rd ring, her voice alert and warm. "Elara, I was going to call you Monday, but something tells me this shouldn't wait." "No," Elara said, "it shouldn't." She gave Dana the clean version first: dinner with Marcus, Simone, and Simone's parents. The envelope, the monthly offer, the phrase unstable, the house paperwork, the mention of a family advance tied to future support. She did not embellish. Dana hated embellishment. Facts were enough when facts were ugly. When Elara finished, Dana was quiet. Then she said, "You recorded portions of it?" "Yes." "Were you part of the conversation?" "Yes." "Good. Don't send those around. Preserve them. Back them up. We'll discuss use later. I already uploaded copies." "Smart." Elara closed her eyes briefly. Praise from Dana always sounded like a filed motion. Precise and unsentimental. Dana continued, "First, do not confront Franklin directly about the documents. Second, do not speculate in writing about fraud. Third, ask Marcus and Simone to obtain their closing file from the title company and lender. If there was a separate private agreement, they need a copy. What if Marcus won't ask? Then Simone can ask for documents she signed. If she didn't sign the private agreement, that tells us something else." Elara wrote that down. Dana's tone shifted. "Now your side. Any access issues, accounts, beneficiaries, powers of attorney?" I checked last night. Marcus is still listed as emergency contact and primary beneficiary in several places. He has no account access. Do not change the will in anger, Dana said. I know, but do schedule a review. I want one. Good. And Elara? Yes? If these people were willing to frame you as unstable after one dinner, assume they may do it again. Keep the communication written when possible. A chill moved through Elara. I thought the same. They scheduled a meeting for Monday morning. After the call ended, Elara sat still, looking at the page of notes in front of her. The apartment around her was quiet, ordinary, unchanged. But her life did not feel unchanged. At 9:06, Simone texted, I found an old email from my father. Subject line, family security agreement. Marcus says not to open it until he talks to Franklin. Elara stared at the message, then another one arrived. It has my married name in the attachment title, but I don't remember signing anything called that. Elara stared at Simone's second message until the coffee beside her went cold. It has my married name in the attachment title, but I don't remember signing anything called that. The sentence looked simple on the screen. It was not simple. Documents did not appear in old email threads by accident. Attachment titles did not use married names by mistake, and families who truly gave gifts did not label them security agreements. Elara typed slowly. Do not open it if Marcus is standing over you or if you feel pressured. Save the email first. Forward it to your own account if you can. Then download a copy to a private folder. The reply came almost immediately. Marcus says I'm overreacting. Elara closed her eyes for a second. She could hear him saying it. Not cruelly, perhaps, not with the hard confidence of Franklin, but with that exhausted, peacekeeping voice he used whenever truth threatened comfort. Overreacting was a convenient word. It made the person asking questions feel like the problem. Elara typed back, You are not overreacting. You are asking to see something with your name on it. Then she paused and added one more line. If he refuses, write down exactly what he says. For a few minutes, no response came. Elara stood and walked to the window. Morning had settled over the parking lot, ordinary and quiet. A man in a blue jacket carried groceries from his car. Two neighbors talked near the mailboxes. Life looked normal from 5 floors up. That was one of the cruelest things about family betrayal. The world did not change shape to match the pain inside a room. Her phone buzzed again. I forwarded it to myself. I'm scared to open it. Elara looked at the message and felt a strange protectiveness for Simone. The night before, she had still been angry at her daughter-in-law's silence. That anger had not disappeared, but now another truth had joined it. Simone was not only part of the family that humiliated her, she was also a woman who had grown up inside a system where money came with obedience. Elara called Dana. The attorney answered more quickly this time. What happened? Simone found an email. Subject line, family security agreement. Attachment uses her married name. She says she doesn't remember signing anything by that title. Dana was quiet for a beat. Tell her not to alter the file. Forwarding is fine. Downloading is fine. No editing, no renaming, no printing until we see the metadata if possible. I already told her to save it. Good. Ask whether the email came before or after the closing date. Elara wrote that down. What exactly are we looking for? Possibly nothing. Possibly a side agreement. Possibly a private loan agreement disguised as family support. If real property is involved, we need to see whether anything was recorded with the county. Not every private agreement becomes a lien, but some can create leverage even without being recorded. So it might not be legally enforceable. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on wording, signatures, consideration, state law, timing, and whether both spouses actually agreed. We do not assume. Elara appreciated that about Dana. She never turned suspicion into certainty before the paper earned it. I'll ask Simone for the date, Elara said. And Elara? Yes, do not become their lawyer. Be Marcus's mother if you can. Be Simone's witness if needed. Let me be the attorney. The words landed carefully. Elara knew Dana was right. Last night had awakened every executive instinct in her. Gather evidence, identify risks, control damage. But this was not a corporate file. This was her son's marriage, her daughter-in-law's family, and a house that might have invisible strings attached to it. After the call, she texted Simone. What date was the email sent? Before or after closing? Simone replied several minutes later. 2 days before closing, Elara sat down. 2 days before closing meant pressure. It meant urgency. It meant there may have been little time for questions. She asked the next necessary thing. Was Marcus copied? The answer came back. Yes, my father sent it to Marcus and me. Marcus replied, Looks good, I'll handle it. Elara read those 4 words 3 times. Looks good, I'll handle it. She could see Marcus trying to be the capable husband, the respectable son-in-law, the man trusted by wealthy people. She could also see Franklin using that desire like a handle. Before Elara could respond, Marcus called. She let it ring twice, then answered. "Mom," he said. His voice sounded rough. "Are you talking to Simone?" "Yes. She's spiraling. She found a document with her name on it that she doesn't remember signing. It's not what you think." Elara stood very still. "Then tell me what it is." A silence followed. "Marcus, it was just a family agreement. What did it agree to?" "I don't remember every detail. You keep saying that." "Because it's true. Then open it." He exhaled sharply. "Franklin said we shouldn't make assumptions until he explains." The disappointment moved through Elara slowly. "You called Franklin before opening a document with your wife's name on it. He knows what it means. Your wife deserves to know what it means. She will, when Franklin decides she may." "That's not fair." "No," Elara said. "What isn't fair is telling Simone she is overreacting for asking about her own house." He went quiet. Elara softened her voice slightly, not because he had earned it, but because he was still her son. "Marcus, listen to me carefully. If this document is harmless, looking at it will calm everyone down. If it is not harmless, waiting gives other people time to shape the story before you see the facts." His breathing changed. She knew that had reached him. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked. "Open it with Simone. Save a copy. Request your complete closing file from the title company. Ask your lender for every document in the loan package. Then stop discussing it with Franklin until you understand what you signed." "That sounds extreme." "No. Extreme was a dinner where someone offered me money to disappear from your life." He had no answer. When they ended the call, Elara immediately wrote a summary of what Marcus had said. She included the time, the phrase Franklin said we shouldn't make assumptions, and Marcus's admission that he did not remember details. Then she saved the note and emailed it to herself. By early afternoon, Simone sent another message. We opened it. Elara's pulse steadied in the way it always did before bad news, and 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. It says my parents' $85,000 contribution was a recoverable family advance. It says repayment may be requested if familial access, respect, or agreed support expectations are materially denied. Elara read the words slowly. Familial access, respect, agreed support expectations. The language was vague enough to be argued over and sharp enough to frighten someone who did not understand it. It was not proof that Veronica and Franklin could take the house, but it was proof they had given money with a leash hidden in the ribbon. She typed one question. "Did you sign it?" Simone replied with a photo. It was a single signature page. Marcus's signature appeared on one line, Franklin's on another, Veronica's below his. And beside Simone's printed name there was a signature. Elara enlarged the image. Her stomach tightened. The signature looked like Simone's name, but something was off. The letters were too careful. Too even, not the quick-angled signature Elara had seen on Simone's thank you cards during the wedding years ago. She did not write forgery, not yet. Dana had warned her against turning suspicion into accusation. Instead, she replied, "Send this to your own secure email. Do not accuse anyone yet. Ask yourself one thing only. Did you personally sign this page?" Simone's answer came back almost instantly. "No." Then another message followed. "Marcus says maybe I signed it during closing and forgot." Elara felt the anger return, colder this time. Before she could answer, a third message arrived. "My mother just texted me. She knows we opened it. She says she and Dad are coming over tonight for a family meeting." Elara read Simone's message twice, then stood from the dining table so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. "My mother just texted me. She knows we opened it. She says she and Dad are coming over tonight for a family meeting." The words confirmed what Elara had already feared. Veronica was not reacting like someone whose harmless paperwork had been misunderstood. She was reacting like someone whose control had been interrupted. Elara called Dana again. This time she did not bother apologizing for the interruption. "They're going to Marcus and Simone's house tonight." Dana's voice sharpened. "Who is?" "Veronica Franklin." Simone opened the agreement. She says there's a signature page with her name, but she doesn't believe she signed it. Now her mother knows they opened it and wants a family meeting. Tell Simone not to hand over any devices, originals, printed copies, or passwords. If she has the email, preserve it. If she can forward the full email with headers, even better. I'll tell her, and Elara, do not go there alone. Elara paused. Dana knew her too well. "I wasn't planning to. You were considering it. I'm his mother. And you are also the person Veronica tried to frame as unstable last night. If you appear uninvited during a confrontation, they will use that. Keep yourself useful. Keep yourself credible." Elara hated how much sense that made. What should I do? Advise Simone to request documents in writing. Advise Marcus to say very little until he has independent counsel. And if anyone threatens legal action, they should end the conversation. Elara wrote it down. Should I tell them to record? Carefully. They need to know her state's rules. In Georgia, one-party consent generally applies, but they should not be reckless. If either of them is participating in the conversation, preserving their own recollection may be lawful. Still, written follow-up is safer. Elara thanked her and hung up. Then she texted Simone, "Do not give your parents your phone, laptop, printed copy, or access to email. Do not delete anything. If they discuss money, repayment, support, or access to the house, write down exact words afterward. If you feel pressured, end the meeting." The reply came quickly. "Marcus says I'm making this worse by involving you." Elara closed her eyes. For a moment, exhaustion rolled through her. It would have been so easy to stop, to tell herself Marcus was grown, to step away and let them all live with whatever they had signed. But love did not disappear because a son disappointed his mother. It changed shape. Tonight, love would not be rescue. It would be a warning, she typed back. "You are allowed to ask questions about your own name and your own home." Then she sent Marcus a separate message. "I will not come unless invited, but listen carefully tonight. If anyone says support can be withdrawn, repayment demanded, or access required, do not agree to anything. Say you need independent advice." He did not answer. By 7 that evening, Elara had made tea she did not drink and set her laptop open on the table. Her phone rested beside it, screen bright. Every few minutes she checked for messages. She hated waiting. Waiting made her feel useless. But Dana was right. This was not a boardroom she could enter and take over. It was Marcus and Simone's house, their marriage, their decision to either look at the truth or bury it. At 7:38, Simone texted, "They're here." Elara's chest tightened, then nothing. For nearly 40 minutes, there was no message. Elara forced herself not to call. She reviewed the screenshots Simone had already sent. The wording of the agreement bothered her more each time she read it. Recoverable family advance, familial access, respect, agreed support expectations. It sounded less like financial protection and more like a door left open for emotional blackmail. At 8:21, her phone buzzed. "Simone. Mom says the agreement was symbolic." A second message followed. "Dad says Marcus understood it was about family loyalty, not legal enforcement." Then another. "Marcus is quiet." Elara gripped the phone. Of course he was. A minute later, Simone sent more. "I asked why my signature is there. Mom said I'm insulting them by asking. Dad said I signed many things and don't remember." Elara immediately replied. "Ask for the original signed document and all versions. Ask who witnessed it. Ask whether it was notarized." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared. Then Simone wrote, "I asked." Dad got angry. Elara stood and walked the length of her living room. Anger from Franklin did not prove wrongdoing, but it did prove pressure. Innocent people could get offended. Controlling people got offended when process entered the room. At 8:44, Marcus finally called. Elara answered immediately. "Marcus." His voice was low. "Mom, I put you on speaker. Everyone is here." Elara stopped walking. She had not expected that. "Am I invited into this conversation?" she asked. A pause followed. Then Simone's voice came through, shaky but clear. "I want you here." Veronica spoke next, sharp and cold. "Of course you do. She has been coaching you all day." Elara sat slowly at the dining table and opened a blank document on her laptop. "I'm here to listen." Franklin's voice entered, controlled but hard. "Mrs. Morgan, this is a private family matter." "Then Marcus can hang up," Elara said. "He called me." Marcus exhaled. "I need help understanding what's happening." The admission was quiet. Elara felt it deep in her chest. Not enough to repair anything, but enough to keep her seated. Franklin spoke with deliberate patience. "What is happening is simple. Years ago, Veronica and I contributed substantially to Marcus and Simone's home purchase. Because we are responsible people, we documented expectations around that contribution. It was never meant to be hostile." "What expectations?" Elara asked. "Family respect. That is not a financial term. It is a family term. Then why put it in a financial agreement?" Silence. Elara typed as the conversation continued. "Franklin, document expectations around contribution. Says not hostile, says family respect." Veronica spoke, her voice trembling with practiced hurt. "After everything we have done, our own daughter is treating us like criminals because you filled her head with suspicion." Simone said, "I asked about my signature." "You are accusing your father," Veronica snapped. "I asked about my signature." There was another silence. This one mattered. Simone had not taken the emotional bait. Elara felt a quiet flicker of pride. Franklin's tone hardened. "You signed the document." Simone replied, "I don't remember signing it. That does not mean you didn't." "No," Simone said, "but it means I want the original." Veronica made a sound of disbelief. "Do you hear yourself?" Marcus finally spoke. "I want the original too. Elara stopped typing for 1 second. There it was, small, late but real. Franklin's voice cooled. Marcus, be careful. You are letting one ugly dinner undo years of trust. No, Marcus said, though his voice shook. I'm asking for a document. You understood what you signed. I thought I did. That is not our fault, Elara resumed typing. Marcus, I thought I did. Franklin, that is not our fault. Veronica's voice came next, lower and more dangerous. If this is how you both choose to behave, then perhaps we need to reconsider the support we provide. Simone asked, what support? The support that keeps families secure, Veronica said. Marcus said, Mom, answer her. For a second, Elara thought he was speaking to her. Then she realized he meant Veronica. The shift was small but enormous. Franklin interrupted. Nobody is threatening anyone. Elara spoke before Veronica could cover it, then put that in writing. A hard silence followed through the phone. Franklin said, Excuse me? If no repayment will be demanded, if no access or behavior is required, if this agreement is symbolic, put that in writing. Have everyone review it independently. Veronica laughed coldly. You would love that, wouldn't you? I would love clarity. No, Veronica said. You would love control. Elara typed that too. Marcus's voice came through, strained. This isn't going anywhere tonight. Because your mother is on the phone, Veronica said. No, Simone replied. Because you won't answer. Then Franklin said the sentence that changed the meeting. If you two insist on treating us like enemies, we can discuss repayment formally. No one spoke. Elara's fingers froze above the keyboard. There it was, not symbolic, not family respect, not harmless documentation, repayment. Formally, Marcus's voice came out faint. Franklin. Franklin seemed to realize he had gone too far, but pride kept him from retreating. Actions have consequences. Elara typed the words carefully. Franklin, if you two insist on treating us like enemies, we can discuss repayment formally. Actions have consequences. Then she saved the document. Marcus, she said calmly, end the meeting. Veronica snapped. Do not tell him what to do. I'm advising my son not to continue a financial discussion under threat. Franklin said nothing. Simone spoke softly. I want them to leave. Marcus took a breath. Elara could hear it through the phone. Then he said, You both need to go. Veronica's voice changed instantly. Marcus, don't be ridiculous. I said you need to go. A chair scraped. Footsteps moved. Veronica began speaking fast, hurt and furious, but the words blurred as Marcus moved the phone. A door opened. Franklin said something too low to catch. Then the door closed. Only Marcus and Simone remained on the line. For several seconds, all Elara heard was breathing. Then Marcus said, Mom. His voice cracked. They threatened us. Elara looked at the notes on her screen. Her son was finally seeing it. Not all of it, but enough. Yes, she said softly. They did. Simone whispered, What do we do now? Elara saved the document again, then emailed it to herself and Dana. You preserve everything, she said, and tomorrow you get the closing file. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, There's something else. Elara's hand tightened around the phone. What? Marcus swallowed audibly. Franklin said before he left that if we keep digging, maybe we should also talk about what you've been hiding from me. Elara did not answer immediately. Franklin's warning had reached her through Marcus's phone like a hand sliding across a locked door, testing the handle. What you've been hiding from me? The words were not random. Franklin had chosen them because they would hurt Marcus, because they would make her son look backward instead of forward, because a frightened man was easier to control than an informed one. Marcus was still on the line, breathing unevenly. Simone was silent beside him. Elara placed one hand flat on the table to steady herself. What exactly did he say? Marcus swallowed. He said, If I keep letting you turn us against them, maybe I should ask what else you've been hiding. He said people who hide money usually hide other things too. Elara closed her eyes. There it was, the next move. Not defense of the document, not explanation of the signature, reputation, doubt. Make Elara look deceptive so every warning she gave could be dismissed as manipulation. Simone spoke softly. He said it like he knew something. He doesn't, Elara said. Then she stopped herself. That was too quick, too emotional, too easy to twist later. She took a breath and corrected the answer. He knows that I kept my income private. He may try to turn that into something darker. That doesn't mean he has truth. It means he has an opening. Marcus sounded exhausted. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I hate that I need to ask. Elara braced herself. Is there anything else? Anything legal? Anything financial? Anything that could affect me or Simone? The question hurt, but she did not resent it. Not entirely. Franklin had planted suspicion, but Elara's own secrecy had given it soil. She had hidden her success from Marcus for years. She had told herself it was protection. Now it sat between them like unpaid debt. There are estate documents, she said. A will, beneficiary designations, medical directives, normal planning. Am I in them? Yes, The silence deepened. Were you ever going to tell me? When it became necessary. Marcus let out a bitter little breath. Like tonight? Elara looked down at her notes. Maybe before tonight. That may have been my mistake. It was the closest thing to an apology she could honestly offer in that moment. She would not apologize for working hard. She would not apologize for protecting her assets. She would not apologize for refusing to turn her life into a display. But she could admit that withholding too much truth from a son had consequences. Simone's voice came through. Elara, my parents are already texting me. What are they saying? A pause. My mother says you planned all of this, that you pretended to be poor so you could humiliate them. She says Marcus should be careful because you're financially controlling in your own way. Marcus cursed under his breath. Elara opened a new document and began typing. Forward the messages to yourself. Screenshot them too. Don't respond while angry. Simone hesitated. She also sent one to our family group chat. Elara's fingers stopped. What does it say? Simone read it aloud, her voice shaking slightly. Tonight was painful. We tried to offer compassion to Marcus's mother, but she responded with deception, secret recordings, and hostility. We are concerned about her influence over Marcus and Simone at a vulnerable time. Elara typed every word. Vulnerable time. That phrase mattered. It made Marcus and Simone sound weak. It made Veronica sound protective. It placed Elara in the role of threat. Marcus spoke sharply. She sent that to my cousins too. Do not answer emotionally, Elara said. She's making you sound crazy, I know. Her calmness seemed to disturb him. How are you calm? I'm not calm. I'm careful. She saved the document under another plain title, Veil Messages Summary. Then she emailed it to herself and Dana. Marcus said, I'm going to call her. No, she can't say that about you. Marcus, listen to me. If you call angry, she will use your anger as proof that I'm influencing you. Ask for all further discussion about the agreement to be in writing. That's it. Simone said, I can do that. Good. Keep it short. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I hate this. I know. No, Mom, I really hate this. Last night, I thought the worst thing was finding out I didn't know your job. Now I'm sitting here wondering if my house has strings attached and my wife's signature is on something she doesn't remember signing. Elara's throat tightened. That is why you need documents, not arguments. After they ended the call, Elara forwarded her notes to Dana with a brief message. They are shifting to reputation attack. Veronica sent group text. Franklin implied I am hiding more. Possible pressure campaign beginning. Dana replied 10 minutes later. Preserve all. Do not engage in group chat. Meeting Monday still stands. If defamatory statements escalate beyond family, we evaluate separately. For now, facts first. Elara stared at the message. Facts first. It had always been her rule, too. By late morning, Marcus sent a screenshot of the family group chat. Veronica's message had already drawn responses. Some relatives expressed concern. Others asked what happened. One of Simone's adult cousins wrote, Is Marcus's mom okay? Another replied, Secret recordings? That sounds unstable. Elara read the word again, unstable. Veronica had planted it at dinner. Now it was spreading. Elara did not cry. She did not type a defense. She created a folder on her laptop labeled Veil Communications and saved every screenshot by date and time. Then she opened the voice memo from the restaurant and listened only to the section where Veronica had said it first. You are making yourself look unstable. Elara clipped nothing, edited nothing. She simply noted the timestamp, 11:17 p.m. Veronica introduced unstable language after recording mentioned. The act of documentation grounded her. It reminded her that she did not have to outshout a lie. She only had to keep the truth intact long enough for it to matter. At noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Elara almost ignored it, then answered without speaking first. Elara Morgan? A woman asked. Yes. My name is Celeste Ward. I'm Simone's Aunt. Franklin is my brother. Elara sat straighter. How did you get my number? Simone gave it to me a year ago when she asked whether she should invite you to a holiday dinner. She never did, I believe. The sentence landed quietly, another exclusion Elara had not known about. Celeste continued before Elara could respond. I saw Veronica's message. I wanted to tell you something before they turn the whole family against you. Elara opened a fresh note. I'm listening. Celeste's voice lowered. Be careful with Franklin. He does not always need a legal win to get what he wants. Sometimes he only needs people scared enough to obey. Elara wrote that down. Do you know anything about the agreement tied to Marcus and Simone's house? She asked. I know Veronica bragged about it once, Celeste said. Not the details. Just that they had made sure Marcus understood gratitude had to go both ways. Elara's pen paused over the paper. When was this? Before the wedding reception. Adults only, private dinner. Franklin had been drinking. Veronica said Simone would never drift too far because they had secured the foundation. I thought she meant emotional support. Now I'm not so sure. Elara felt the phrase move through her like ice, secured the foundation. Celeste continued. And Elara, there's one more thing, yes? I don't know if it matters, but Franklin has been under pressure. Business pressure. Civil complaints from investors. Nothing criminal that I know of, but enough that he has been desperate to look stable. If Simone and Marcus pull away publicly, he will not handle it well. Elara wrote each word carefully. Why are you telling me this? Celeste was quiet for a moment. Because Veronica called you unstable today. Years ago, she used the same word about me when I questioned how Franklin handled our mother's estate. Alassa went still. What happened? Celeste's voice hardened. I backed down. I regret it. The call ended 5 minutes later after Celeste promised to forward an old message if she could find it. Elara sat at the table staring at her notes. The story had widened again. Veronica's language was not new. Franklin's pressure was not new. Simone and Marcus were not the first people to be cornered by the Vale family's polished version of love. At 12:47, Celeste's email arrived. The subject line read, "Found this." Inside was a forwarded message dated 9 years earlier. Veronica had written to relatives about Celeste, calling her emotional, unstable, and financially confused after she questioned estate paperwork. Elara saved it immediately. Then she saw the final line of Celeste's email. If they are using that word on you, it means they are preparing the family before they do something else. Elara read Celeste's final line 3 times. If they are using that word on you, it means they are preparing the family before they do something else. The apartment felt too quiet around her. Sunlight had shifted across the dining table, touching the folders and notes she had arranged into careful stacks. There was order in front of her, but not peace. Every saved screenshot, every recording, every typed summary pointed in the same direction. Veronica and Franklin did not simply defend themselves. They prepared the ground before they acted. Elara forwarded Celeste's email to Dana with a brief note, pattern evidence, same unstable language used in prior estate dispute, possible reputation preparation. Dana replied within minutes, do not respond to group messages. Preserve Celeste's email. Ask Marcus and Simone to request closing file today. I will run a preliminary public records search before Monday. Elara stared at the words public records search. That was the next door. She had suspected the agreement might be private, possibly unenforceable, possibly just emotional leverage dressed in legal language. But if anything had been recorded against the house, then Marcus and Simone were not only dealing with family pressure, they were dealing with property risk. She texted Marcus, "Have you requested the closing file from the title company?" No answer. She texted Simone the same question. Simone replied after 6 minutes, "I requested it. Marcus is angry I did it without him." Elara pressed her lips together. He was still more offended by the process than by the pressure that made the process necessary. That hurt. It also told her how deep Franklin's influence had gone. Marcus had learned to treat questions as betrayal. Elara wrote back, "You did the right thing. Save the request and any response." Then she added, after a moment, "This is not about choosing me over Marcus. This is about both of you understanding your own documents." Simone's reply came slower. "I know. I'm trying not to fall apart." Elara's hand hovered over the phone. She wanted to comfort her, but comfort without truth would only continue the cycle that had brought them here. So she chose careful honesty. Falling apart is not the same as failing. Keep records, eat something, do not meet them alone. After sending it, Elara closed her laptop and walked to the locked drawer in her bedroom. She opened it again and removed her estate folder. The yellow note from the night before sat on top. Review all designations with Dana. Do not change while emotional. She had written it to stop herself from acting out of pain. Now she understood it differently. This was not only about pain. It was about exposure. If Veronica could suggest she was unstable, and if Marcus was still named in too many places, then Elara needed to make sure no one could use confusion, illness, or family pressure to reach her assets later. She did not change anything alone. Instead, she scanned the current beneficiary summary, medical directive page, and power of attorney document into a secure folder. She checked the dates. She checked who was named. Marcus was still listed as healthcare contact, though not as financial agent. Dana had always insisted on separating medical and financial authority. Elara had been grateful then. She was more grateful now. She uploaded copies to secure storage and wrote another note for Monday. Review. Emergency contact, health directives, successor decision makers. Consider adding neutral professional fiduciary or co-agent. The words looked cold on the page, but they were not cold. They were protection. At 2:13 p.m., Dana called. "I found something preliminary," she said. Elara sat down. "Tell me. First, this is not a full title review. I ran public county records based on Marcus and Simone's address. Their warranty deed and mortgage are recorded as expected. I do not see a formal lien from Franklin or Veronica Vale. Elara exhaled slowly. That's good. Yes, but there is a recorded memorandum. The relief stopped. What kind of memorandum? A short document referencing a private family advance agreement. It does not attach the full agreement, but it identifies the property address and states that the parties acknowledge related private obligations. Elara felt the words settle like stones. Who signed it? That's what bothers me. The recording index shows Marcus Morgan, Simone Morgan, Franklin Vale, and Veronica Vale as parties. I need the actual image to confirm signatures. The clerk's online system is slow, but I requested a copy. Would Simone have known? She may have signed it during closing if it was placed in the stack, or someone may have submitted a signature page she doesn't recall. We do not assume forgery yet. I know. Dana's voice softened. Elara, this is leverage, maybe legal leverage, maybe emotional. But it is more than symbolic. Elara looked at the quiet room around her. Her modest apartment, her old furniture, her carefully kept life. Last night, Veronica had tried to buy her distance for $700. Now Elara understood the larger design. People like Veronica and Franklin did not only buy distance, they recorded leverage. What should I tell Simone? Tell her to ask for the title company's full closing package and the recorded memorandum. Tell Marcus to do the same. They need their own attorney, not me unless conflict rules allow and everyone is clear. I can advise you, they need independent counsel. Elara wrote it down. After the call, she texted Marcus and Simone in a group message. Dana found a recorded memorandum referencing the property and a private family advance agreement. It may not be a lien, but it is tied to the house record. You both need the full closing file, recorded memorandum, and independent legal advice. Marcus replied first. You had Dana search our house? Elara stared at the message. There was the old reflex again. Not fear that Franklin had tied a private agreement to his property record. Anger that his mother had looked. She typed carefully. Public records exist so owners can verify what affects their property. You should have searched it first. He did not respond. Simone did. I'm calling an attorney Monday. Elara allowed herself one breath of relief. 10 minutes later, Marcus called. She answered but said nothing first. His voice was strained. Mom, this is too much. Yes. You're making me feel like an idiot. No, Marcus, the documents are making you feel that way. That's not fair. It is kinder than pretending you understood what you signed. He went quiet. Elara softened. I don't want you humiliated. I want you protected. It doesn't feel like protection. I know. Sometimes protection feels like the end of denial. He let out a tired breath. Simone won't look at me. She is hurt. I didn't forge her signature. I didn't say you did, but you're thinking it. I'm thinking the signature needs to be verified. Mom. Marcus, listen to the difference. Accusation says someone committed a crime. Verification says the truth matters enough to check. I am asking you to verify. Silence. Then he said, Franklin says recorded memorandums are normal, then ask your attorney. He says lawyers make family conflicts worse. Elara closed her eyes. Of course he does. Marcus did not answer. She could feel him slipping between worlds. One world had Franklin's confidence, Veronica's approval, the illusion that everything could be smoothed over if everyone stopped asking questions. The other world had documents, signatures, consequences, and a mother he had underestimated. Marcus, she said, do not let the person who benefits from your confusion define clarity as betrayal. The line went quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. I don't know how to fix this. You start by telling Simone you will not discuss the agreement with Franklin until you both have independent advice. I don't know if I can say that. Then ask yourself why. He hung up without saying goodbye. Elara lowered the phone slowly. It hurt. Still, she wrote a summary of the call. Not because she wanted to build a case against Marcus, but because patterns mattered. Marcus angry about search. Feels humiliated. Franklin discouraging lawyers. Marcus unsure he can pause discussions with Franklin. She saved it. By late afternoon, the family group chat had grown worse. Marcus forwarded more screenshots. Veronica had not named Elara directly again, but the implications were clear. She wrote about outside influence, secret wealth used to intimidate, and older relatives who manipulate through guilt while pretending to be humble. Several relatives reacted with concern. One suggested everyone needed to sit down and clear the air. Celeste texted Elara privately. They're setting up a public conversation. Don't go without your receipts, Elara replied. I won't. At 5:26 p.m. Dana emailed the county image. Elara opened it with steady hands. The recorded memorandum was only 2 pages. Dana had been right. It did not include the full agreement. It referenced a private family advance connected to Marcus and Simone's property, stated that related expectations were acknowledged by the parties, and gave Franklin's office address for notices. Then Elara reached the signature page. Marcus's signature looked real. Franklin's and Veronica's looked bold and practiced. Simone's signature looked wrong in the same careful way it had looked in the photo. But it was the witness line that made Elara stop breathing for a second. Witness, Harold P. Voss. Elara did not know the name, but beneath it in small print was a company affiliation. Vale Capital Holdings, Franklin's company. Elara saved the document, forwarded it to Dana, and sent one sentence. The witness worked for Franklin. Elara kept staring at the witness line. Harold P. Voss, Vale Capital Holdings. The name itself meant nothing to her, but the affiliation meant plenty. A witness was supposed to confirm that signatures happened properly. Maybe Harold had done that. Maybe he had watched Simone sign. Maybe everything had been rushed, but legitimate. Elara would not let herself leap beyond the facts, but the facts were already troubling. A document tied to Marcus and Simone's property had been witnessed by a man connected to Franklin's company. Simone did not remember signing it. Franklin had discouraged lawyers. Veronica had started calling Elara unstable. And Marcus was still trying to measure the danger by how uncomfortable it made him feel. Dana called within minutes of receiving the memorandum. "I saw it," she said. Elara answered from the dining table where every paper now seemed to carry weight. "How bad is it? Bad enough to take seriously. Not enough to make accusations yet. The witness works for Franklin." "Yes, that is a concern. It does not prove anything by itself, but it raises questions about independence and process. What can Marcus and Simone do? They need their own attorney to review the agreement, the memorandum, the closing file, and the email chain. If Simone says the signature is not hers, that needs careful handling. A handwriting expert may eventually be relevant, but not as a first move. First, they gather originals and context. Elara wrote each step down. Dana continued. "For you, we have a separate issue. The family is already attacking your credibility. We should review your estate documents now, not later. Monday morning. Bring everything. Will, trust notes if any, beneficiary forms, powers of attorney, medical directive, account list. Also bring the recordings and the family messages." Elara looked toward the locked drawer. "I'll be there." "And Elara?" "Yes?" "You need to consider whether Marcus should remain in any role that gives him decision-making power if you become incapacitated." The sentence hurt even though Elara had already thought it. "He's my son," she said. "I know. That is why this is hard. He isn't trying to hurt me. Maybe not. But pressure can travel through people who mean well." Elara closed her eyes. That was exactly what Marcus had become at the restaurant. A person through whom pressure traveled. After the call, she opened her estate folder again. This time she did not just scan. She read every line, every name, every authority. Marcus was not her financial power of attorney, but he was first healthcare decision contact. He was also the primary beneficiary on 2 non-retirement accounts, an old life insurance policy, and a transfer on death designation she had created years earlier. She placed sticky notes on each page. Review, review, review immediately. By the time she finished, the table looked like a legal office, yet the deeper mess was emotional. Every note felt like a small betrayal of the version of Marcus she had wanted to trust without conditions. But trust, she now understood, could not be built on avoidance. Not for him. Not for her. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, she let it ring through once before answering. "Yes?" His voice sounded hollow. "Simone found the witness name. I know. She says Harold works for Franklin." "He does. Mom, I swear I didn't know that." Elara believed him. That was almost worse. "What did you know, Marcus?" He was silent too long. "I knew Franklin's office prepared something. I knew he said it protected the family. I knew he wanted it signed before closing so there wouldn't be confusion later. And Simone? I thought she signed." "You thought?" His voice cracked. "Yes. Did you watch her sign? No. Did you ask her afterward? No." Elara sat back. The truth was not dramatic. It was ordinary and devastating. Marcus had not forged anything. He had not plotted to trap his wife. He had simply trusted the wrong person and failed to protect the person standing beside him. "Marcus," she said softly, "you let Franklin handle something that affected your wife's legal and financial life, and you did not make sure she understood it." "I know." The words came out barely audible. That was new, not defense, not frustration, acknowledgement. Elara let silence hold it for a moment. Then Marcus said, "I'm sorry about last night." Her hand tightened around the phone. "For which part?" she asked. He inhaled unsteadily. "For being ashamed, for letting them talk to you like that, for knowing they wanted to offer something and pretending it was help, for not asking who you were before strangers made me feel embarrassed by you." Elara looked down at the folder in front of her, at his name written again and again in places where she had once assumed love was enough. "I hear you," she said. "That's all?" For now, he went quiet. She knew he wanted forgiveness. She also knew giving it too quickly would only teach him that apologies erase patterns. She loved him too much to make it that easy. "I'm meeting Dana Monday," she said. "For my house?" "For my documents." His voice changed. "Your documents?" "My estate plan. Beneficiaries, medical directive, emergency contacts. Because of me? Because of what happened around me?" "That sounds like yes." Elara closed the folder. "Marcus, you told me last night that my role in your life was not my business. Then Franklin used my secrecy to make you question me. Veronica called me unstable. You are under pressure, and I cannot pretend that pressure could never affect decisions about me." He sounded wounded. "I would never take advantage of you. I hope that is true." "It is true. Then you should want my documents protected from everyone, including you, under pressure." That silenced him. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. "I don't like who I was last night." "Good," Elara said gently. "That means you still have a choice." After they hung up, Elara sat very still. A part of her wanted to cry. Another part wanted to get dressed, drive to Marcus's house, and hold him like she had held him years ago when adult life first bruised him. But those days were gone. He was a grown man. He needed consequences more than comfort now. By Monday morning, Elara arrived at Dana's office with a leather folder under one arm and a flash drive in her purse. Dana's office was downtown on the 8th floor of a building with quiet elevators and old wood trim. Elara had been there many times for routine planning. This time, every chair felt heavier. Dana greeted her with a brief hug, then moved straight into work. For 2 hours, they reviewed everything. Dana recommended replacing Marcus as sole healthcare contact with a 2-person structure. Marcus plus Elaine Brooks, Elara's longtime friend and retired nurse, as an alternate who could verify decisions if family conflict arose. For financial matters, Dana suggested keeping the professional fiduciary already listed and strengthening language that prevented informal family pressure from being treated as consent. Elara listened, asked questions, and approved only what made sense. She did not remove Marcus as beneficiary entirely. That would have been punishment, and she did not want punishment guiding her pen. But she did change direct transfers into a trust structure with staggered access, creditor protections, and language preventing assets from being pledged, assigned, or controlled by a spouse's family or outside party. Dana watched her sign the instruction letter. "This is measured," she said. "It doesn't feel measured. It is. You're not cutting him off. You're protecting the inheritance from becoming someone else's leverage." Elara signed the final page. The pen felt heavier than it should have. When she left Dana's office, the morning sun was bright enough to make her squint. Her phone buzzed before she reached the parking garage. A message from Marcus. "Simone and I found the title company's closing package. The family agreement was not in the main closing file. Franklin sent it separately 2 days before. Simone's signature page is only in his version." Elara stopped walking. Another message arrived. "Veronica just texted us. She says if we keep inviting outsiders into family matters, they'll demand a written apology and full repayment schedule." Elara looked at the signed estate instructions in her folder. Then she typed back, "Do not respond emotionally. Send it to your attorney. And Marcus, this is no longer about embarrassment. This is leverage." Elara did not send the message immediately. She stood in the parking garage outside Dana's office, one hand holding the folder against her chest, the other hovering over her phone. "This is leverage." The sentence was true. It was also the kind of sentence Marcus might reject if he felt cornered. She deleted nothing, but she added one more line beneath it. "You don't have to believe me. Believe the documents." Then she sent it. For the first time since the dinner, she felt the quiet edge of fear. Not fear of Veronica, not fear of Franklin. Fear that truth might arrive too late to save what could still be saved. Marcus had lived too long wanting approval from people who treated money like authority. Simone had lived too long under parents who made love feel conditional. Elara could point to the door, but she could not force either of them through it. She drove home slowly, letting traffic give her time to think. By the time she reached her apartment, Marcus had not replied. Simone had. "We have a consultation tomorrow afternoon." Marcus agreed. Elara read that twice before allowing herself to sit down. "Good," she wrote. "Bring everything. Original email, attachment, closing file, recorded memorandum, texts, and notes from the meeting." Simone responded with a thumbs up, then added, "My mother says she wants one more dinner with everyone before lawyers poison the family." Elara stared at the phrase, "one more dinner." That was how Veronica worked. She did not want privacy for healing. She wanted an audience before the facts hardened into documents she could not control. A dinner allowed tone, emotion, tears, pressure, performance. Lawyers made people precise. Veronica wanted them soft. Elara forwarded the message to Dana. Dana's reply arrived 15 minutes later. Do not attend unless the purpose is clear. If they insist on a dinner, insist on no document signing, no repayment discussion, no phones taken, no private side conversations. Better, decline until after legal consultation. Elara sent Marcus and Simone a version of that advice. Marcus finally replied. She invited Celeste, 2 cousins, and Franklin's business partner. Says it's to clear the air. Elara sat very still. Celeste was one thing. She had warned Elara. But cousins and a business partner changed the purpose. Veronica was not clearing the air. She was staging the air. Elara typed, "That is not a family dinner. That is a witness room." Marcus answered, "I know." Those 2 words moved through Elara more deeply than she expected. Not "I think you're overreacting." Not Franklin says, not Mom, stop. I know. A small crack in denial, small but real. Simone called an hour later. Her voice sounded steadier than it had the day before. Elara, I don't want to go. Then don't. Marcus thinks if we refuse, they'll tell everyone we're hiding. They may. That's what scares me. Elara looked at the folder on her table, at the new estate instructions, at the printed memorandum with the witness lines circled in yellow. Simone, sometimes controlling people create 2 bad choices, so you'll pick the one that keeps you closest to them. Simone was quiet. Elara continued, if you go, go with rules. If they refuse rules, that tells you the dinner was never about peace. What rules? No signing anything. No repayment discussion without attorneys. No private conversation where one person pulls you away. No explaining Elara as the problem. And if your signature comes up, you say only that you are seeking independent review. Simone repeated the points softly, as if writing them down. Then she asked, will you come if we decide to go? Elara closed her eyes. Dana had warned her, do not go alone. Do not give them a scene. Do not let them frame her as unstable. But if Veronica was gathering relatives and business contacts to attack her credibility, absence could become its own weapon. Elara understood rooms. She understood the moment when silence stopped being strategy and became permission. I'll come, she said, but only after your attorney consultation, and only if Marcus asks me too. Simone exhaled. I'll tell him. The consultation happened the next afternoon. Elara was not present, and that was correct. She spent the hour at home reviewing work emails she barely absorbed. At 4:37, Marcus called. His voice was different, not fixed, not healed, but clearer. The attorney said the agreement may not be enforceable the way Franklin thinks, he said. Asara sat down. That's good. But the recorded memorandum is a problem, not because they can automatically take anything, but because it clouds things enough to scare buyers or lenders if we ever refinance or sell. Did he say what to do? He wants to send a letter requesting the original agreement, proof of delivery, any witness records, and clarification that no repayment is currently being demanded. And Simone's signature? He said we need to compare it carefully. He didn't call it forged. He said disputed. Elara nodded, though he could not see her. That is the right word for now. Marcus went quiet. Then he said, Mom, I'm sorry I got angry that you searched the public records. I understand why you did. No, you don't have to make that easy for me. I got angry because it made me feel stupid. Elara softened. Feeling stupid is painful. Staying uninformed is dangerous. He let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but tired. You sound like Dana. Dana is usually right. She also scared me. She should. They were quiet for a moment, and for once the quiet did not feel like avoidance. Then Marcus said, about the dinner. Veronica wants tomorrow night. Private room at the same restaurant. Elara almost smiled at the audacity. Of course she does. She wants everyone to hear both sides. Does she know about your attorney? Yes. Simone told her. How did she react? She said lawyers turn children against parents. Elara's face hardened there. It was again. Children. Parents. Language meant to shrink adults back into obedience. Never mind that Simone and Marcus were grown, married, homeowners, decision-makers. To Veronica, adulthood ended where her control began. Are you going? Elara asked. I don't know. You need to decide with Simone. I want you there. The words were quiet. Elara closed her eyes. This was not the same as being invited to perform poverty. This was not Marcus asking her to behave so others would be comfortable. This was her son asking her to stand where he had once left her standing alone. I'll come, she said. But Mom, yes? Bring the recordings. Elara opened her eyes. Something had changed. I will bring copies, she said, not originals. And Dana? She won't attend a family dinner like a courtroom unless there is a legal purpose. But I'll tell her. She said the same thing, Marcus admitted. That meant he had asked. That mattered. By the next morning, the rules had been sent in writing by Marcus and Simone's attorney. No signing documents, no discussion of repayment terms, no recording objections if any participant wished to preserve the conversation where lawful, no threats of disinheritance or financial retaliation. Any discussion of the family advance would be followed up through counsel. Veronica replied only to the family group chat. We are saddened that Marcus and Simone now require rules to sit with family. Still, we will attend in good faith. Celeste texted Elara privately. That means she's furious. Elara replied, I assumed. Before leaving for the second dinner, Elara stood in front of her closet. This time, she did not choose the gray dress. She chose a navy suit she wore to serious meetings, simple but well-tailored. No flashy jewelry, no disguise, no apology. She placed printed copies of the recording's transcript summaries, the $700 envelope note, Celeste's old email, the recorded memorandum, and her restaurant receipt in a slim folder. Then she added one more document. The signed instruction letter from Dana confirming her estate plan review had begun before any public family accusations could escalate further, not to threaten anyone, to remind herself that she had already taken back control of what was hers. When she arrived at the restaurant, the private room door was half open. Voices drifted out. Veronica's voice was the clearest, soft, and wounded. We tried to help her, she was saying, but Elara Morgan is not the humble woman she pretends to be. Elara paused outside the door. Inside, several adults sat around the long table. Marcus and Simone were already there, tense but seated together. Celeste sat near the far end, watching quietly. Franklin stood by the window, speaking with a man Elara assumed was his business partner. Veronica continued, unaware Elara had arrived. She came to that first dinner dressed like a poor woman on purpose. She recorded us, she hid her wealth, and now she has convinced my daughter and son-in-law that kindness is control. Elara stepped into the doorway. Every face turned. This time, Veronica had not placed her at the far end of the table. There was only one empty chair left. It was directly across from Veronica. Elara stepped into the room without rushing. She felt every set of eyes move across her suit, her folder, her steady face. No one saw the woman from the first dinner now, no gray dress. No old canvas tote used as a disguise. No careful shrinking to make other people reveal themselves. Tonight, she looked like what she had always been, a woman who had survived enough rooms to know exactly when silence was useful and when it became surrender. Marcus stood when she entered. That small act mattered. Simone stood too, her hand brushing Marcus's for half a second before both of them sat again. They looked exhausted, but they were sitting together. That mattered even more. Veronica recovered first. She gave Elara a wounded smile, the kind meant for witnesses. Elara, I'm glad you decided to join us. I was invited. Veronica's eyes flicked toward Marcus. Yes, we all know that now. Elara took the empty chair across from her. She placed her folder on the table but did not open it. The room smelled of lemon water, expensive food, and controlled anger. Franklin's business partner, a silver-haired man in a navy blazer, watched from beside the window. Celeste sat quietly with her hands folded. Two adult cousins Elara had never met looked uncomfortable, as if they had expected family gossip and found themselves inside something heavier. Franklin remained standing. Before this goes further, I want to make one thing clear. This gathering is not legal, it is family. Then it should be safe to tell the truth, Elara said. His expression tightened. Veronica lifted a hand. Truth is exactly why we're here. Because what happened at the first dinner has been twisted into something cruel. Franklin and I offered compassion. We saw an older woman we believed might need support. Instead of receiving kindness, she trapped us. Marcus leaned forward. Veronica, the offer was for my mother to reduce contact with me. That is your interpretation after days of outside influence. It was my interpretation at the table, Elara said. Veronica turned to the others. You see, she admits she came there already suspicious. I came there observant. Franklin's partner glanced at Franklin, then looked away. Celeste's mouth tightened as if she were trying not to smile. Veronica reached into her purse and removed a cream-colored envelope. The same type as before, maybe not the same envelope, but the gesture was deliberate. She set it on the table where everyone could see it. This, she said, is what Elara has turned into a weapon. $700 a month, a modest gesture, groceries, transportation, a little dignity. Elara looked at the envelope. She felt no anger this time, only clarity. You offered that money in exchange for distance from Marcus, she said. Veronica's face hardened. We offered it to reduce pressure. Play the recording, Marcus said. The room went silent. Elara turned toward her son. His face was pale, but his eyes stayed on Veronica. Veronica gave a short laugh. There it is, secret recordings at family dinners. Does that seem normal to everyone? Marcus did not back down. You said she was a burden. You said our marriage needed freedom from her emotional obligations. You said $700 could help her stay comfortable if she stepped back. I did not use those exact words. Elara opened her folder. She removed a printed transcript summary, not the audio itself, and slid copies toward Marcus, Simone, Celeste, and the two cousins. She did not hand one to Franklin's business partner. He was not family, and she would not let Franklin pretend this was both private and public depending on convenience. These are excerpts with timestamps, Elara said. The original files are preserved. I am not playing them here unless Marcus and Simone ask me to. Simone took her copy with trembling fingers. I ask. Veronica's eyes flashed. No, Simone said. You brought the envelope again. You made it the center of the room. So let the room hear what came with it. Elara connected her phone to a small portable speaker she had brought in her handbag. She played only one short section. Veronica's voice filled the room, polished and unmistakable. $700 a month. It isn't meant to replace income. It's just a cushion. And in exchange, Marcus and Simone need room. Fewer calls, fewer visits, less guilt when they can't include you in every decision. Elara stopped the playback. No one spoke. The sound of Veronica's own voice had done what argument could not. It had removed softness from the story. The offer was no longer a feeling Elara had misread. It was a record. Franklin stepped in. That proves nothing except that my wife expressed a concern awkwardly. Celeste looked at him. Awfully convenient word. Awkward. Franklin turned sharply toward her. Celeste, stay out of this. She looked back at him calmly. You invited me. The cousins shifted in their chairs. Veronica tried to regain control. Even if the offer was poorly phrased, that does not explain why Elara hid her wealth. She sat there pretending to be helpless while judging us. Elara looked at the relatives around the table. Yes, I dressed plainly. I let them believe what Marcus had already allowed them to believe. I wanted to see how they treated someone they thought had no value. And that is deceit, Veronica said. It was a test, Elara replied. You can dislike the test. You cannot deny your answers. Franklin's business partner cleared his throat. Perhaps the financial agreement should be separated from this personal matter. Elara finally looked at him. I agree. Which is why it should not have been used to pressure Marcus and Simone after they questioned it. Franklin's shoulders stiffened. No one pressured them. Marcus took a paper from the folder in front of him. You said if we treating you like enemies, we could discuss repayment formally. Franklin's face darkened. That was said in frustration. Elara removed another printed page. It was said after Simone asked for the original agreement and after you refused to clearly confirm that no repayment was being demanded. Simone set her hand on the table. And my signature is on a document I don't remember signing. Veronica snapped because you signed many things during closing. Simone's voice shook but held. The title company's full closing package does not include that agreement. Franklin sent it separately 2 days before closing. The recorded memorandum was witnessed by Harold Voss from Vale Capital Holdings. That is not the title company. The silver-haired partner by the window went very still. Franklin noticed. Elara noticed Franklin noticing. That was the crack beneath the crack. You are discussing confidential matters in front of outsiders, Franklin said. Marcus turned toward him. You brought your business partner. Franklin opened his mouth, then closed it. Celeste leaned back, watching her brother with old recognition. That was a mistake, wasn't it? Veronica slapped her palm lightly against the table. Enough. This is exactly what Elara wanted. Division, suspicion. Everyone turning on the people who helped. Elara did not raise her voice. Helping does not require a recorded memorandum. Helping does not require vague repayment language tied to respect. Helping does not require calling people unstable when they ask questions. Veronica's face changed at the word unstable. Celeste reached into her purse and removed a folded paper. No, but that word does seem to appear whenever someone questions this family's paperwork. Franklin stared at her. Don't. Celeste unfolded the paper anyway. 9 years ago, when I questioned our mother's estate accounting, Veronica wrote to relatives that I was emotional, unstable, and financially confused. Veronica's color drained. Elara did not speak. She had brought Celeste email, but Celeste owning her own history was stronger than Elara presenting it. One of the cousins looked at Veronica. You said Celeste had a breakdown. Celeste's eyes stayed on Franklin. I had questions. Franklin's business partner shifted by the window. Franklin, what estate accounting is she referring to? Franklin's jaw clenched. Old family nonsense. Like this is family nonsense? Marcus asked. The room tightened around that question. Franklin turned to him. You need to remember who helped you buy that house. Marcus nodded slowly. I do. That's the problem. Veronica's eyes filled with tears, sudden and theatrical. After everything we sacrificed, this is what we get. Public humiliation? Simone answered before anyone else could. You taught me that money meant safety. But every time I ask for safety, you call it betrayal. The tears on Veronica's face stopped looking useful. Her expression hardened beneath them. Elara opened the final section of her folder. For clarity, I have reviewed my own estate documents. Marcus is not being cut off because of Simone. He is not being punished for asking questions. But my assets are being placed in a structure that prevents any outside family pressure from controlling them. Marcus looked down, absorbing it. Franklin's eyes sharpened. Outside family pressure? Yes. You mean us. I mean anyone who believes money should come with obedience. Veronica leaned forward. You think you're better than us because you earn more. No, Elara said. I think I'm responsible for what I allow near my life. The room went quiet again. This time, the silence did not belong to Veronica. It belonged to Elara. Marcus stood slowly. His hands trembled, but his voice did not. I should have defended my mother at the first dinner. I didn't. I let shame make me quiet. I won't do that again. Simone stood beside him. And I want the original agreement reviewed independently. If my signature is legitimate, we'll address it. If it isn't, we'll address that too. But we are not apologizing for asking. Franklin looked at the business partner, then at the cousins, then at Celeste. The room he had expected to control had turned into a room full of witnesses he no longer trusted. Veronica stared at Elara. Then, in a voice low enough to sound intimate and sharp enough to wound, she said, Fine, you got your performance. Now be generous and forgive us in front of everyone. Elara looked at the envelope still lying on the table between them. $700, one recording, one house agreement, one family finally seeing the cost of silence. She folded her hands and realized every eye in the room was waiting to see what kind of woman power had made her. Elara looked at Veronica across the table and understood the trap. Forgive us in front of everyone, not apologize first, not explain the signature, not withdraw the repayment threat, not acknowledge the envelope, the recorded memorandum, or the family pressure. Veronica wanted a public release, a clean ending she could carry back to the group chat and polish into proof that nothing serious had happened. Elara folded her hands on the table. No, Veronica's face tightened. No, Elara repeated. I will not perform forgiveness so you can repair your image. The room stayed silent. Veronica's eyes filled again, but the tears did not move Elara this time. So you want to punish us? I want accountability, Elara said. Those are different things. Franklin gave a bitter laugh. Accountability for what? A badly worded family agreement? An awkward offer? You have turned ordinary family tension into a trial. Simone stood straighter. My attorney requested the original agreement this afternoon. He also requested clarification on whether repayment is being demanded. Franklin's mouth closed. Marcus added, and until we get independent review, we are not discussing repayment, refinancing, or any access expectations with you. The words were careful, probably advised, but they were Marcus's voice, and for the first time in days, he used it without looking at Franklin for permission. Celeste looked at Franklin's business partner. You may want to know the witness on that memorandum worked for Vale Capital Holdings. The partner's face changed, not dramatically, just enough. Enough for Franklin to see the professional consequence forming in real time. That document was private, Franklin said. It was recorded against their property, Elara replied. That made it discoverable. One of the cousins pushed her chair back slightly. Veronica, you told us Elara was trying to control them. You didn't say there was a property document. Veronica looked cornered for the first time. Because it was not the point. It was always the point, Simone said quietly. The dinner, the apology demand, the family messages. It was all pressure so we would stop asking. Veronica turned toward her daughter. After everything we gave you? Simone's voice trembled, but she did not break. You gave it with a leash. That sentence ended the public performance. No one shouted, no one stormed out, but the air shifted. Franklin's partner excused himself 5 minutes later, saying he had an early call. The cousins left soon after, polite but distant. Celeste squeezed Simone's shoulder before leaving and told Elara she would forward anything else she found from the old estate dispute. Veronica and Franklin remained seated, smaller somehow without the audience. Franklin finally said, We will have our attorney respond. Marcus nodded. Good, so will we. Veronica looked at Elara. Are you satisfied? Elara gathered her folder. No, but I am clear. 3 weeks passed before the first legal letter came back. Franklin's attorney did not demand immediate repayment. He called the agreement a misunderstood private family arrangement and offered to release the recorded memorandum if Marcus and Simone signed a mutual statement saying there had been no wrongdoing. Their attorney refused that wording. Dana did not represent Marcus and Simone, but she reviewed what concerned Elara and advised restraint. No victory lap, no public accusations. Just documents, dates, and pressure applied where it belonged. The title company confirmed the family agreement had not been part of the official closing package. That did not prove a forged signature, but it did confirm Simone had not signed it in the normal closing stack. A handwriting review was started, not as a dramatic accusation, but as part of a careful challenge. Harold Voss, the Vail Capital employee who witnessed the memorandum, stopped responding directly once attorneys became involved. Franklin's professional world did not collapse overnight. Real life rarely worked that way. But word traveled. His business partner asked formal questions about document practices inside Vail Capital Holdings. The existing civil complaints from investors gained new attention. He did not lose everything. He lost something more useful to him than money, the assumption that his version would be accepted without proof. Veronica lost her audience. In the family group chat, Celeste posted one short message. I was called unstable once for asking questions too. I believe documents should answer what emotions cannot. After that, the relatives stopped repeating Veronica's language. Some stayed silent, some apologized privately to Simone. No one asked Elara to explain herself again. Marcus and Simone began financial counseling and marriage counseling, not because everything was healed, but because both finally admitted they had been living inside other people's expectations. Marcus stopped the habit of calling Franklin before making decisions. Simone changed passwords, organized her records, and insisted every financial document in their marriage be stored where both could access it. Elara watched from a distance. That was the hardest part. Marcus came to her apartment one Sunday afternoon with flowers and no excuses. He stood in her small living room looking at the furniture he had once mistaken for lack and cried in a way she had not seen in years. I made you small in my mind, he said, because it was easier than asking who you really were. Elara wanted to erase his pain. Instead, she let him feel it. You hurt me, she said. I know, and I love you. I know that too. We rebuild slowly, he nodded, as slowly as you need. She did not invite him back into every part of her life that day. She did not tell him the new trust details. She did not reverse the estate changes. The structure stayed. Marcus would still inherit, but not in a way that could be pledged, pressured, or redirected by anyone else. Elaine Brooks remained added as alternate healthcare contact. Dana kept the updated instructions. Elara had not punished her son. She had protected them both from the weakness that denial had exposed. Simone came alone 2 days later. No makeup. No expensive performance. Just a tired woman carrying a folder and a handwritten note. I'm sorry, Simone said. Not because I got caught between my parents and Marcus. Because I saw them hurting you and stayed quiet. Elara accepted the note but did not open it immediately. An apology is a beginning. Simone nodded. I know. I'm not asking you to trust me yet. That was the first thing she said that sounded fully grown to Elara. They drank tea at the small dining table. Simone did not comment on the apartment. She did not praise its simplicity or ask why Elara lived there. She simply sat in it respectfully, as if understanding that peace did not need to look expensive to be real. By the end of the month, the recorded memorandum was not gone yet, but the process to release or formally dispute it had begun. Franklin and Veronica stopped visiting Marcus and Simone unannounced. Their financial threats now traveled through attorneys, where vague words like respect and loyalty had far less power. That alone changed the balance. Elara returned to her routines. Coffee before sunrise. Reports at the dining table. Plants on the balcony. Comfortable shoes by the door. She still worked in regional operations. She still earned what she earned. She still lived in the same apartment, not because she was hiding, and not because she was proving anything. Because she liked the quiet. One evening, she opened the locked drawer and looked at the old estate folder beside the new one. For years, she had believed silence protected love. Now she understood silence only protected love when truth was waiting behind it, not fear. She closed the drawer and locked it. Her phone buzzed. Marcus had sent a message. Dinner Sunday, just us, no pressure. Your choice. Elara smiled faintly. Then she typed back, tea first, dinner later. It was not full forgiveness. It was not punishment. It was a door opened only as far as peace allowed. She set the phone down, walked to the balcony, and looked out at the city lights. The woman Veronica had tried to buy for $700 was still standing. Not richer because people knew her salary. Not stronger because Franklin had stumbled. Stronger because she had chosen not to disappear from her own life. Would you have forgiven Marcus and Simone or kept your distance longer? And if someone judged you by what you seemed to have, would you reveal the truth or let them expose themselves first?